Good evening. I call the August 24th, 2021 City Council regular meeting to order. City Clerk Ben Lane, please conduct the roll call.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor David Ortega.
Present.
Vice Mayor Betty Janik.
Present.
Council members Tammy Caputi,
Here.
Tom Durham,
Here.
Kathy Littlefield,
Here.
Linda Milhaven,
Here.
and Solange Whitehead.
Here.
City Manager Jim Thompson,
Here.
City Attorney Sherry Scott,
Here.
City Treasurer Sonia Andrews,
Here.
City Auditor Sharon Walker,
Here.
and the City Clerk is present. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, and welcome back to the Kiva, Scottsdale, Arizona. We have Scottsdale police officers, Dustin Patrick, Christian Bailey, and Anthony Wells, as well as firefighter Jake Abbott. Should anyone need assistance, let's stand. Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, first of all, I do want to mention that 71.6% of eligible population in Scottsdale has now gotten at least their first dose of the COVID-19 vaccine, which is excellent news. And we need to all work together to make this number even higher. There are plenty of places to go to get your vaccines. Simply go to the City of Scottsdale AZ.gov homepage. You can click on a link and look for the tab labeled Coronavirus COVID-19. All of those resources, latest information is available. And of course, you can find a location near you. On August 17th, Scottsdale City Manager Jim Thompson declared stage 1 of the city's drought management plan. Although the Colorado River Tier 1 shortage is not to be implemented until January 1st, 2022, the city of Scottsdale has always been focused on water conservation and recycling, and we are dedicated to finding new ways to use every drop of water efficiently. Now, with stage 1 of the drought management plan in place, our management team will activate means to examine our needs, recommended target appropriate responses, and increase drought and water shortage communications efforts throughout the city. At this point, we will open public comment. Public comment is reserved for Scottsdale citizens to comment on non-agendized items that are within the City Council's jurisdiction. No official council action can be taken on these items, and speakers are limited to 3 minutes to address the council. We have received 3 requests. We have received 1 telephonic request, and at this point we have 4 in-person public comment requests. So let me move to Shane Stone and ask him to patch in the public comment by remote.
Thank you, Mayor Ortega and members of the City Council. This is Shane Stone with the City Manager's Office. For public comment, we will go to Mr. Lundberg. Mr. Lundberg, please press *6 on your device and begin your public comment.
Greetings, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Are we reading? Okay. Greetings, Mayor and City Council members. Good evening to you. My name is Dan Lundberg. I live in Pinnacle Peak Reserve. I'm calling with regards to the The bridge over Rawhide Wash Miller Road Extension Project. We are requesting block wall noise abatement to the back of our property. We are 175-foot direct line of sight to precisely where the pavement of the road will be. And myself and my next door neighbors only have view fences between us and the road. Presently, there is a short, very low retaining wall between our NEOS land and where the road is. It's approximately 3 foot high and it's about 14 inches on the ends to allow wildlife to pass through. And we're requesting that if and when the road goes through, that wall be increased, or if you have to work with our HOA or what have you, that be increased to an 8 to 10 foot height to help block the noise from our homes and possibly any light that might be entering from the headlights of cars into the backs of our houses. So secondly, we would like to request some type of traffic calming, speed limiting, safety stuff along Miller Road. Speed bumps, maybe a simple roundabout at the Miller and Wantabo intersection. There are 2 school bus stops on Miller Road, and there's one at, they're both on Whispering Wind and Miller. On the east side, they pick up in the morning, and on the west side, they drop the kids off in the afternoon. And if this is going to be a major corridor, they're going to have to be running across 4 lanes of traffic that they've never had to contend with before. As you know, this road has been barricaded. Miller Road's been barricaded at Parkview Lane for the last 23 years, which brings me to my next point. We purchased and built our house in the 96, 97 timeframe. And this was classified as a minor arterial at that time. And on May 18th of 1999, the city council had a meeting to reclassify and redesignate this road as a major corridor, I believe, after it was already built. We were already in our home at that time. So I don't know if the reclassification of the road or redesignation of the road would have changed the way that it was initially designed, but it sure seems like it's a very narrow pathway for this amount of traffic and volume that's going to be going through our neighborhood. So basically, that's all I had to add to this meeting at that time, and possibly join you all when this is an agenda item in the future.
Thank you, Dan.
Any questions?
Thank you very much, sir. Next, we have in person, Lisa Fitzgerald, and then French Thompson. Then let's lead off with French Thompson.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council members. My name is French Thompson. My address is on record. Last time I saw you guys, I had a lot longer hair. I had it all cut off because I got skin cancer. You know, when I first moved to Scottsdale, I really enjoyed sitting in the swimming pool and drinking a beer and lying on a raft and getting a tan. Felt great. I mean, it really did feel good. I seriously thought that's what living in Scottsdale was all about. Problem is, I didn't really have a care in the world about the consequences of those actions. Later, years later, I discovered I got skin cancer. Stitches, surgery, all that kind of stuff. It was very expensive and it was very painful to remove. Lucky for me, it hasn't happened that I've died from it, but some people do die of skin cancer. This is exactly what the city of Scottsdale is doing with its development. It's causing a cancer that'll happen in the future. Basking in the joy of all this development without a single thought of its consequences. It was just mentioned about the drought management. Where are we going to get all the water for all this new development? Who's going to pay for the water that they don't have? Are the developers going to provide all of the water for these developments? Who's going to provide all the infrastructure from the roads, the sewage to the lighting? What are the plans for the increased congestion and air pollution on our roads? What happens to the rest of the city with the increased heat island effect? Higher density has a proven heat island effect of up to 15 degrees hotter than the surrounding area. This is a cancer that's growing in Scottsdale, and it's something that you, the city council, can slow its growth. No more upzoning. Our city was built around single-family detached homes, and now the developers want to thrust high density and congestion down the throats of those single-family neighborhoods and its own downtown. There is no benefit to the citizens of Scottsdale by allowing greater density by upzoning these developments. I ask you to please listen to the people who voted you into office and not to the people who want to develop with no regard to the future consequences. With the water shortages that we know are going to happen, we know that the congestion is going to happen. It's really in your hands to be able to slow this down and look at it and look at what the future consequences will be to it. The citizens are talking to you all the time about they don't want these developments. I know there's many people that do. There's developers who want it. They're going to make a lot of money off of it. But the citizens in the neighborhoods around it are not going to benefit from that. So I thank you for your time, and I really hope you take this into a very serious consideration.
Thank you. Next, we have Arthur Deal. And then I'll make another call for Lisa Fitzgerald to follow.
Mayor, members of the council, public. I was here a couple, I don't know, before the pandemic, and I'm the guy that is very unhappy about Papago Park. I'm talking about the Giants sublease of a part of the park. I'm a party in a lawsuit. We have now we have a court date. The U.S. District Court seems to find some justification in our claims. This is serious stuff. There are about 6 deeds and other instruments of conveyance that say that that land is to be used for a public park, public convenience and recreation and so on. There are also about the equal number of in each of those deeds, there are reversionary provisions that say things like, let me see, and if the land so granted and any parts thereof shall be abandoned for such uses, such land or such part shall revert to the U.S. We have a meeting tomorrow with some lawyers from Scottsdale and Phoenix. It's our first face-to-face or video meeting. I don't know how it's going to go. We have some kind of management report that the Judge Snow, that's the Arpaio guy, has given us, and we're going to run with it. I'm asking, what I want is to get this behind me. I don't want to inflict damage on the city of Scottsdale or even to me as a taxpayer. I would like to request that you kindly consider this. You know, it's really important because you don't want, if things go south and the whole thing falls through, and we insist that the reversionary provisions be strictly enforced, the Giants are going to turn around and they won't be for pocket change. They will want their investment back plus costs. And I'm talking millions and tens and tens and tens and tens of millions of dollars. This is not Mayor Ortega's mess. This is Mr. Weeding and Dealing Lane. And I second that the previous gentleman's motions on the developers. My grandfather always said that they do what they want. They run Arizona. Let's keep it down. How's my time? Oh, I got 43 seconds. Okay, what shall I do? Oh, yes. Make it interesting in my final moments. We have, parallel to all the legal stuff, the 20-some motions that have been gone back and forth. We've been fighting with the Secretary of the Interior. Thank you. And we have a Freedom of Information request about anything to do with Papago Park. And there was a meeting about the titles. And this is what we get back. They redacted dozens of pages. This is what they sent me. A bunch of pages like this, little black boxes. And pages like this. This is one of the 3 pages, all blank. Some kind of attorney-client privilege. Time's up. You guys take care. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Last call for Lisa Fitzgerald, who submitted a card. Going once, going twice. I now close public comment. We'll next move on to the minutes. And I would ask that I request a motion to approve regular meeting minutes of June 22nd, 2021, work study session minutes of June 22nd, 2021, special meeting minutes of July 1st, 2021, executive session minutes of July 1st, 2021, regular meeting minutes of July 1st, 2021, special meeting minutes of July 2nd, 2021, executive session minutes of July 2nd, 2021, and regular minutes of July 2nd, 2021. Any amendments? A motion?
I make a motion to accept all those minutes.
I'll second that.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Please register your vote. Approved. Next, we will go to our consent agenda items. That is items 1 through 28. We did receive 3 requests for public comment. There were 2 by telephone and 1 in person. So I would go first to the telephonic and ask Shane Stone to patch them in.
Thank you, Mayor Ortega and members of the City Council. For public comment, we actually only have 1 comment telephonically. The other person we have not heard from, unfortunately. So we will go to Mr. Hayden. Mr. Hayden, please press *6 on your device and begin your public comment.
Hi, yes, my name is William Hayden, and my address is on record. Thank you, Mayor and City Council. I'm here to speak to the proposed liquor store in downtown Scottsdale. I do not believe that that is a good idea for a number of reasons. I'm a operator of a business here in town. I also am active in the community, and I believe, just based on my own Google search, that bringing a liquor store into any environment increases crime rates and deteriorates the experience, especially given this is potentially being put in our entertainment district, which there are a lot of venues there that probably would not benefit from having liquor store clientele wandering around the streets with open containers. So I would please ask that the City Council reach out and actively oppose this and send notification to the state. And on behalf of business owners as well as regular citizens, I vehemently oppose this application. And I also ask that if we need to get various public officials involved, ranging from law enforcement to public safety, we just need to get as many people as we can to actively oppose putting a liquor store in our entertainment district downtown. I know we have a lot of investments in that area, and I just don't think, based again on my own research of what's out there, what happens when you put a liquor store, I just don't think that it's going to have a positive impact on our city, on the trajectory that we've built with Scottsdale as a destination for not only individuals, but also families. And it's going to be detrimental to all of the activities that folks have in those markets. So I'm going to give you guys time back. I'm just going to use the 1 minute out of the 2. So that's all I've got.
Thank you, Mr. Hayden. I think you were speaking on item 28A, which will be on the regular agenda. Also so noted, if there is another person to speak regarding the consent agenda items, please approach, tell us your name, address. I'm told that there's one other person in person,
I think he was.
but if not, my information.
Mayor,
Yes.
it's Betty Janik. Real quick, I think he was speaking about item 1 on the consent agenda, which was 7501 Camelback liquor license. The person who just spoke.
Yes.
Okay, I thought you said it was a different number.
Excuse me, I stand corrected. Go ahead, Councilman Durham.
Well, I think what Vice Mayor Janik is saying is that item 1 on the agenda is different than item 28A,
I see.
which comes up later.
I'm sorry.
I think they're 2 different liquor licenses.
I apologize. Yeah, I see that now. And is there another case in-person comment?
Mayor, I believe you were correct. Item number 1 is actually for a bar.
Yeah.
He was clearly speaking to a liquor store, which is item 28A. So I believe you were correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, at this point, we do have public comment on consent items, and I see no other public comment. Therefore, I will close public comment pertaining to the consent agenda items 1 through 28. Is there a motion to approve consent agenda items?
I move to accept the consent agenda items.
I'll second it.
Second.
Okay, and to clarify, that is absent the item 3, which we're going to be hearing on the regular agenda as posted. So please register your vote. Okay, passes unanimously. Now, we are moving on to the regular agenda items, which include item 28A through 32. In the light of the request by the applicant for a second continuance on item number 29, I will change the order of the agenda to decide that request. So I do have a request, and I ask if there is a motion to continue item number 29, so-called district at 9400 Shea, non-major general plan amendment and rezoning. Is there a motion?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion, Mayor.
And do you have a specific date certain?
Yes, I do.
So you would so move, and what is the date?
Well, I'd like to speak to it for a minute, if I may,
You can speak to it, but please make
and make the motion. Yeah, I just want to say that we've received a tidal wave of opposition to District 9400 Shea in the last 48 hours. And certainly public support is a big component of my decision on how I vote. This is a tricky infill lot as well. And so there's also a traffic flow challenge that the applicant is working on. So I contacted the applicant, who is here, and their zoning attorney representing him is here today, and said that these 2 items would make it so that I wouldn't be able to support the project. And that team has asked for a delay until October 19th. And sometimes the public doesn't see the inside stuff that we see, but this development team is just incredibly respectful and responsive. So I am definitely going to reciprocate and support a motion until October 19th. They've got a tall order ahead of them. And at the end of the day, I'm going to represent our constituents, but I hope my colleagues will join me and support a continuance until October 19th. Thank you.
I have a motion, and is there a second?
I will second the motion, and I'd also like to make a few comments if I could.
Thank you.
All right. As Council members Whitehead has indicated, we have received a tremendous amount of email on this subject, and we understand your concerns. I've driven this area, and traffic is difficult, to say the least. But I think it's important the public understand some of the issues around this. And the first is it's important to understand that something is going to be built here eventually. It's zoned for a 48-foot tall office building. So we've gotten a lot of email saying, don't allow any 48-foot buildings here. Well, the truth is we can't stop a 48-foot building. It's zoned for a 48-foot commercial building, and we can't stop that. One possible use for this would be a medical office building, which would be a very logical use, given its proximity to the Honor Health Campus. Now, think about the traffic at a 48-foot office building. You're going to have doctors entering that building. You're going to have nurses entering that building, receptionists, lab technicians, and patients. So it's entirely possible that the traffic at a 48-foot medical office building would be more intense than the apartment building that's proposed here. So it's not a simple issue of not building an apartment building here. This is a very serious issue that all of us take very, very seriously. And we think about this a lot. So it's not an issue of letting a developer do something and make money, because I think everybody who lives here owes a developer the building that they live in. So it's not a simple black and white issue. This is very, very complex. We are trying to figure out what is best for the community, given the regulatory environment we have. And as I say, there are alternatives here which are possible to build without rezoning, which could create more traffic than is already there. I support the continuance. I second the motion because I agree that the applicant here has acted in good faith. It's a very, very complicated project. I've raised a number of issues, and we've just run out of time to solve these issues. And we're trying to see what can best be done here, and we've just run out of time to get something done. So I support the continuance. I think the applicant has acted in good faith, and we've just run out of time to see if we can solve the problem. So I do support the continuance.
Thank you. We have a motion and we have a second, and discussion goes to Councilwoman Littlefield.
Thank you, Mayor. I had a question for Mr. Gilbert. When we discussed this earlier, you had given me a different date than October. I believe it was sometime in November. Did you want a different date for this this continuance to occur to?
Thank you. For your record, my name is Paul Gilbert, 701 North 44th Street. You are right, and I apologize for the confusion. But we found out that the date I asked for in November doesn't work because of complications of the timing of the adoption of the general plan. And so we have asked, and I apologize for the confusion because we've made, I think, 3 asks today, but the October 19th is our preferred date. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please register your vote. Thank you very much. It passed unanimously. Good luck with your project, sir. We will now return to item number 28A, the Old Town Scottsdale liquor license subject. Presenter is Tim Curtis, current planning director. Hello.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Yeah, I'm Tim Curtis with the city's planning department. So yes, item 28A is the Old Town Scottsdale liquor case 38 LL 2021. This is consideration for the city council to consider forwarding a recommendation to the state. This is a state application, a state liquor license, requesting the council to make a recommendation on it. So consideration for making a recommendation to the state regarding a Series 9, which is a liquor store liquor license at a new location. So this location had not been previously licensed for liquor. So that's a new location. It's at 4439 North Saddlebag Trail in the entertainment district. This is a context aerial showing the property in yellow, kind of on the north side of the entertainment district, just south of Camelback Road there. closer up aerial shows the more precise location, Saddleback Trail and Camelback Road. And then I have the street view showing the building, the premise that this new location is proposing. This building has been vacant for a number of years. So with the recommendation to the state for this liquor license for the new location, there's a very short criteria, and that is for the state that the council consider whether the public convenience and best interests of the community will be substantially served by the issuance at this location. That's what they have. Now, there's a lot of other things that that play into this in terms of the consideration by the city council when they make a recommendation to the state. The property is zoned commercial, which allows retail sales, allows offices, allows restaurants. One of the criteria that you may consider is the building in good condition? Does it meet all does it have all the permits? Also, one of the criteria is, have there been any violations, liquor violations associated with these premises within the past 5 years? And I think the property has actually been vacant for more than 5 years. But there's a lot of other locational criteria that the council can evaluate when making a recommendation. The population of the area, is it growing? Is it reducing? There's nothing in the criteria or the documents from the state that tells you growing is better than not growing. It just says that the council can consider that. Is the area marketable in terms of the liquor license request? Is the liquor license location compatible with the area's activity? The council can consider the number of liquor licenses within a mile, as well as the accommodation of vehicular traffic. And then whether schools are located within 300 feet or other daycare type facilities can be part of the consideration that council can make. And then in terms of public outreach, we do have the 20-day posting requirement, so that's been met. Council can consider any written arguments for or against the proposed application. And we have both written arguments for and against. I think you received those. The police department did express concerns. Given the location, entertainment district, the potential for purchase and consumption on the street. They brought up the potential for purchase and consumption immediately prior to or after attending a venue. And they also have a concern about, the potential disturbances and altercations surrounding this establishment. So they definitely wanted to share that with you. And Officer Bailey is here to expand on more of that if you'd like. So in terms of the action requested, again, the city council has the option of recommending approval, disapproval, or no recommendation. And so the next step is whatever the recommendation will be, it'll be forwarded to the Arizona Department of Liquor Licenses for control for their consideration. And again, I'm here to ask any questions or answer any questions, and so is Officer Bailey. And I think there may be some members of the public that wish to speak, as well as I think the applicant is here to either give a presentation or answer any questions. Thank you, Mayor.
Well, I think we do have quite a bit of public comment, and it would probably be most productive if the applicant first spoke. And so I would ask for that applicant to come forward, state your name, address, and representation.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. My name is Jake Curtis. I'm an attorney at Birch and Cracchiolo, 1850 North Central Avenue. And I do represent the applicant. The owners of the applicant are here right in front of you. This is Samir Yono and his daughter, Vanessa Yono. And yeah, I apologize. Let me apologize in advance. I'm not quite as prepared as I'd like to be for one of these. I just got hired yesterday. We weren't aware of any opposition to this until about a week ago. We had staff recommendations we didn't see any problems with it. Oh, I'm sorry. Speak better into it. So yeah, they just learned about that there was an issue with this and it was pulled off consent last week. We just got quite a few opposition notices last night, or the ones that I saw, contained quite a few false statements that I did want to address here. I did want to note that this is a location transfer. The qualifications of the applicants are not really at issue. This body actually approved them for a liquor store about 0.8 miles away from this location. In the interim, they found this one and thought it would be better suited for what they're proposing to do. So what really all we're looking at today is this an appropriate location for a liquor store? The applicant sent you an email with some photographs of what they're proposing to do, that they know the owners of some high-end liquor stores that are in the entertainment district in San Diego. Those have been operating very successfully for a number of years. And they propose to essentially duplicate that process here in the entertainment district of Scottsdale. This body and Scottsdale in general has been advocating for more mixed use in the downtown area, including residential. There's no liquor store in this particular area. This provides a great opportunity for people who live nearby to avoid their cars, to walk, pick up liquor, things like that. So this is a necessary use in this particular area that's not being currently met. Would note, the staff did not identify any issues with this particular location. There hasn't been any problems in the past. The applicant, actually, Mr. Yono, has been operating licensed establishments in Arizona for more than 30 years. He owns a 7-Eleven in Scottsdale, owns a restaurant up in Fountain Hills. Never had any problems with any liquor violations. They're great operators. They'd be a perfect group to operate this particular liquor store. We have seen we got a public records request, so we found out why it was pulled off the consent agenda. So we have seen some opposition from immediate neighbors, various, looks like bars in the adjacent area. A little surprised to see some of it in light of we know that one of the main opponents is proposing to have a medical marijuana dispensary in the entertainment district, which seems to be more problematic than a liquor store. But I did want to address some of the claims that were circulated amongst the populace, including that Mr. Samir is actually a 32-year-old felon. I think you can see Mr. Yono right there. He's been operating for 30 years. He's not the person identified in the letter that was submitted around, I think to you guys, maybe on Friday. Vanessa also is not a 19-year-old recent graduate of NAU. She's actually graduated quite a while ago. She was in corporate at JCPenney's for 13 years. These are solid citizens with a long record of operating successful businesses. They will not be a problem. There was a statement too that I saw that the applicants didn't consult with their neighbors. They actually did hire a representative who went around, talked to various neighbors, didn't identify any opposition. And I think most noteworthy for the claims that this will encourage public intoxication and open bottles on the streets, which of course are illegal currently. But all the Series 6 licenses, all the bar licenses in the area, they also can sell packaged liquor for offsite consumption. So the idea that this would be the first or only place where you could buy packaged liquor and take it away is simply not true. All of the bars that have Series 6 licenses in the immediate area could sell packaged liquor. And so all the problems that they identified, to the extent they're not existing now, this particular use will not increase those problems either. My clients did, in particular, talk to their immediately adjacent neighbor, the Pretty Please, and Sean Yari also, who initially gave them verbal approval and said they didn't have a problem with it. They also talked to other neighbors in the area, and no one expressed opposition until about a week ago. So we're not quite sure where all this opposition came from, but when they originally applied, they want to have a high-end, very nice place for local residents to buy fine wine and alcohol. They can take it home and consume it. They don't have to drive their cars. They don't have to go into a bar to buy it. And that use is just simply not available in the immediate area. So this is something that's really necessary in light of the plan to increase residential and the increased residential uses that are in this area. As far as we know, there's no problem with the location. There hasn't been any liquor violations in the area. This is an entertainment area. There's adequate parking. The plan for this particular liquor store will be that on the busy nights, Friday and Saturday, they're going to limit the number of patrons that can enter. They'll have professional security, making sure intoxicated people aren't coming in or milling about outside. But they plan to operate a high quality, very nice establishment for local residents to buy alcohol. It's zone C2. This is a permitted use in the C2 zoning district. And so this is an appropriate location. These are excellent applicants with long-term knowledge about the sale of liquor in Arizona, been very successful for a long time. And so we would just ask that you consider their application and forward your recommendation to the State Department of Liquor. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you. At this point, we will go on to public comment regarding case 28A. And I will ask Shane Stone to handle the telephonic at this time.
Thank you, Mayor Ortega and members of the City Council. We will start remote public comment with Ryan Hibbert, to be followed up by Jason Adler. Mr. Hibbert, please press *6 on your device and begin your public comment.
Mayor Ortega and City Council members, can you all hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
All right, good evening. My name is Ryan Hibbert, and I'm the CEO of Riot Hospitality Group. I wish I could have been there tonight, but me and my fiance just had twins, and they're only 8 days old. So they're currently in the NICU, and we're hoping that they're going to come home soon. So I will only be able to join you on Zoom tonight. I wanted to give a little background. Riot Hospitality is a national hospitality management company that by year's end will manage over a dozen locations across the country: Gilbert, Nashville, Chicago, Denver, and of course here in Scottsdale. It's right here in Scottsdale where we started our company over a decade ago. And as most of you know, I'm a third-generation Arizona native, and Scottsdale is our home. As our company has grown, so has the Old Town area. I've been owning and operating businesses in the Old Town area for over 20 years, and we're extremely proud of our contribution to its vibrancy. And for all things you are here tonight and more, we stand with the businesses, the owners, the hotel operators, and the residents that strongly oppose this liquor store license application in the Entertainment District 38-LL-2021. Over the past 2 decades, there has been substantial investments made in the downtown area, and in particular the Entertainment District, to create a successful and highly sought after area of the downtown that we now have today. Improvements to evolve the Entertainment District into a high-end mixed-use area with a more sophisticated mix of restaurants and nightlife with hotel and hospitality for a broader appeal. It's for this reason and many others that we don't want to see applications like this liquor store start to disrupt that balance and devolve the downtown Scottsdale. Specifically, as stated by Tim Curtis earlier, the Arizona Department of Liquor Statute R19-1-702 states, to determine whether public convenience requires and the best interest of the community will be substantially served by issuing or transferring a license at a particular unlicensed location, local governing authorities and the board may consider the following criteria: petitions and testimony from individuals who favor or oppose the issuance of a license who reside or own or lease property within 1 mile of the proposed premises. Well, currently there are over 20 to 30 property and business owners within 1 mile that oppose this application, including Dirks Bentley's Whiskey Row, El Jefe, Riot House, Maya, The District, Farm and Craft, Handcut Chop House, and the Clubhouse. These are not simply employees of the businesses, but the actual stakeholders and business owners in the area that do not support this application. Number 2, evidence concerning the nature of this proposed business and its potential market. This liquor store application's customers will be foot traffic from the Entertainment District. These customers could be possible people that have been cut off from further alcohol use from other well-managed establishments of the downtown. Additionally, because of the new cocktails to go
law, as of October 1st, 2021, a Series 9 liquor store license, which was being applied here for today, will be able to sell to-go drinks up to 32 ounces, which can consist of slushy alcoholic drinks, just exactly like Mardi Gras in New Orleans. This will have a direct effect on increased public consumption, increased vagrancy, increased traffic issues, increased loitering, increased crime, increased consumables such as cigarettes and cigars, and overall people trying to consume their single-serve beverages in parking lots and streets, putting the onus on the other businesses in the area and Scottsdale PD to manage open containers on public and private property every day. And the applicant is correct. All Series 6 licenses do
Hibbert?
have the ability to sell. Yep.
Mr. Hibbert, this is Mayor Ortega. I want to congratulate you on your twins, and you're now eating into Jason Adler's time. So you had an extra minute there. Again, congratulations. Let's go to the next speaker.
Thank you, Mayor Ortega.
Sir. I appreciate that.
And thank you, Mr. Hibbert, for your comment. Our next public comment will be coming from Jason Adler, to be followed up by Tom Hatton. Jason Adler, please press *6 on your device and begin your public comment.
Hello, Mayor Ortega and City Council. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Jason Adler. I am definitely in opposition of this. Over the past 18 years, I myself have been a part of the growth in the area, and I've had the pleasure of witnessing it firsthand with the Scottsdale Entertainment District. I am pretty bothered to see this, and upon learning of this liquor license application, it's just utter dismay. I firmly believe that the interests of the community will not be substantially served by the issuance of this liquor license. Overall, I do believe with confidence that council will recommend denial of this request. But unfortunately, I don't think that may be enough. I am also here today asking that you do more. I'm asking that you send a clear message to the State Liquor Board that this license is definitely going to be something that's unwelcome to the area. I asked the council to send a formal letter to the AZ.gov LLC strongly opposing this application. I also asked council to ask Scottsdale, please contact the head of AZ/DPS and notify them of the city of Scottsdale's opposition once this happens on this liquor application. And if the application still gets approved after these actions, I'd also ask City Council to send our city manager to the State Liquor Board hearing to oppose this application. Contrary to Mr. Yono's beliefs, as he stated in the liquor license questionnaire, the addition of a liquor store in the entertainment district will not be a very welcome addition to the neighborhood and the entire downtown area. It, in fact, could potentially lead to the demise of Old Town as we know it. Mayor Ortega and City Council, the future of Old Town definitely lies in your hands with this, and we respect you guys in this beloved city. I respectfully urge you guys to make the right decision for the community and recommend disapproval of this liquor license. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Adler. And our next public comment will be coming from Mr. Hatton, to be followed up by Joyce O'Brien. Mr. Hatton, please press *6 on your device and begin your public comment.
Mayor Ortega and members of the City Council, thank you for the time today. My name is Tom Hatton. I'm the owner of Mountainside Fitness Centers and a lifelong Valley resident. And recently, in the last 10 years, we moved our corporate office approximately a quarter mile from where the proposed use is going, and with their liquor license. And when it came to our attention that this use was somewhat allowed or even on the consent agenda, I decided to speak up, not just as a resident of the city of Scottsdale, but as a business owner in the community, and just looking at the massive amount of progress that the city of Scottsdale has done by blending the old heritage of Scottsdale into the progressive movement of today and flowing with retails and hotels as well as restaurants, there's some uses, even though allowed by code, that just don't fit in certain zoning districts in certain areas. And this was one of them I felt important to speak up with to everybody, to say I strongly oppose it as well, and just feel that there's just, certain dogs for certain races, and this isn't one of them in this particular area. I do believe in businesses to be able to go where they want to go in certain areas, but the density of this area, the certain retail area, businesses that we have there, it just doesn't make sense at this time to allow that. I do look at also what the applicant stated, that they will be a welcome addition to the neighborhood. However, the entire neighborhood is opposing the application. It became more aware to everybody in the last 2 weeks, which is why you saw so much opposition in this meeting. Applicants narrative states that they will be popular with hotel visitors, yet every hotel operator in the area is opposed to the application as well. Plain and simple, the application is just the wrong use in the wrong location at this time, and I strongly oppose it, and just wanted to make sure it was there on the record as a business owner in the area, and just strongly proud of the progressive nature of what the city of Scottsdale has done over the years. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Hatton. And our next public comment will be coming from Mr. O'Brien, to be followed up by Tommy Moore. Mr. O'Brien, please press *6 on your device and begin your public comment.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, Mayor Ortega, City Council members. My name is Boyce O'Brien. I'm here on behalf of Stockdale Capital Partners, obviously in opposition to this application. For the record, my address is 4501 North Scottsdale Road, and I'll try to make it quick. I have to give the attorney credit for coming up with a tremendous story in just a week. But with all due respect, it's partially based on fiction. I just spoke to Sean, who unfortunately is traveling with his family and unable to attend, but he adamantly denies that anyone from this applicant has spoken to him or Ryan Jacques. So the attorney needs to spend a little more time getting his facts straight. As you're likely aware, Stockdale Capital owns approximately 30 properties within a half-mile radius of this site, and we oppose it for good cause, but not the least of which is an attempt to maintain the character of this key quadrant in downtown Scottsdale and hopefully avoid letting it slip backwards. Our company has spent the last 10 years and over $10 million in collaboration with the city, the community at large, to establish a master plan PBD roadmap in this area that embraces our community and neighbors. Our goal is to evolve this into a 24/7 hospitality district that embraces all ages, and we are proud of that. In fact, we've already begun construction of over $250 million on 2 high-rise developments. Our hotel Maya permits will be issued in just a few weeks. Water view permit will be pulled in the next week, and the Edition Hotel is scheduled to begin construction later this year. With several other high-profile projects in the pipeline, we're proud to be on track to spend over $500 million with a B in Scottsdale over the next 3 to 5 years. We reached this point in a collaborative manner, including public outreach that went above and beyond the minimum requirements. Obviously, we are better together, and we need to maintain a common vision to accomplish our common objectives, but a liquor store with who knows what upstairs is absolutely contrary to that goal and is not a public need or community convenience. This is nothing more than a wolf in sheep's clothing. It's a grab-and-go liquor store on the auspice of convenience. The last time I checked, convenience stores were conveniently located on main streets with convenient circulation and convenient parking. This site is internal to the hospitality district, so there's little doubt that their sales will be generated by pedestrian traffic. Their target will be people heading into or out of the nightclubs. Whether they start their night with a rapid, unregulated consumption, or they get kicked out and want to end up in the streets or worse in their cars, it's a disaster waiting to happen, as expressed by the police. We can all debate what quality business development is, but this is not it. This is not a project that respects Scottsdale, nor is it supported by the neighbors that their attorney suggests. In closing, I understand and appreciate the mayor and council's recommendation role and implore you to send a strong recommendation of denial to the state in opposition to this Class 9 application. Thank you for your time and thoughtful consideration.
Thank you, Mr. O'Brien. And for our next public comment, we will be going to Mr. Moore. Mr. Moore, please press *6 on your device and begin your public comment. Mr. Moore, it looks like you are still muted. If you press *6 on your phone, that should unmute you and you can begin your comment.
Okay, I think you might be able to hear me now. My name is Tommy Moore. My company is Endeavor Real Estate. I have owned and operated and lived in Old Town Scottsdale for the last 20 years. The progress here has been tremendous by the groups doing it, all the different developments, apartment buildings, the entertainment district has just been wonderful. We don't need a liquor store down in this area. We have a Fry's grocery that has all the liquor that someone would ever need less than a quarter mile away from there. We also have a Safeway, which is less than a mile from there. That's all the liquor that this area needs ever, more than the bars. So I would ask that the board strongly deny this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moore and Mayor Ortega and members of the City Council. That concludes telephonic public comment on this item. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now turn to in-person testimony. I will begin with Correll Thomas and then Lisa Druss. I ask that you state your name, address, and come forward. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Correll Thomas. My address is 10914 East Crescent Avenue, Mesa, Arizona. I also partially reside in Nashville, Tennessee. I am the Director of Security Operations for Riot Hospitality Group. I've basically spent the last 16 years of my life as a protector. Half of that time was in the military, the other time in executive protection, and now I run security operations for hospitality companies throughout the country. I am also a weapons and tactics instructor for multiple law enforcement agencies down in Nashville, Tennessee, involving de-escalation techniques. So to say I know a little bit about dealing with drunk people is a little bit of an understatement. I can tell you that a liquor store being interjected into the entertainment district in Old Town Scottsdale is literally one of the last things that we currently need if we want to continue to grow this beautiful city. To speak to some of the attorney's points, while a liquor store may flourish in San Diego in their district, I am very proud to say that we are not San Diego and that we do things differently here. 0.8 miles can make a very big difference in where you put a liquor store. And to speak to the gentleman's comments right before me, there are already large liquor stores readily available outside of the entertainment district. Who is going to basically secure this premises as far as being able to walk in, buy small bottles of liquor, drink them before you come into establishment, essentially tricking the door staff who is trained in combating letting over-intoxicated patrons in? Because I wanted to know how easy it was in order to get small liquor bottles, be able to consume them, and then go into a premises. So these are empty, but 1, 2, 3, 4, and I could have fit more in my pockets had I wanted to. So what is to stop underage patrons or patrons looking to get drunk quick before they go into an establishment? What is going to stop them from doing exactly what I just did? What is going to stop these patrons from purchasing alcohol on their way out of the U and then getting in their car and possibly hurting themselves or others, causing a massive dram shop lawsuit for multiple business owners in that downtown district, not to mention the tragedy of loss of life or injury. I do not want to see the Scottsdale officers have to become babysitters in the street for overly intoxicated patrons that cannot control themselves because they desire to consume liquor in the U and then cause problems. We need those officers for more serious offenses. They do not need to have their hands tied dealing with constant problems from people purchasing single serve liquor from a store inside the district and then wreaking havoc in the downtown U. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak today.
Thank you. Next, we have Alyssa Druss and then Jude Naw.
Good evening, Mayor Ortega and City Council members. Thank you for allowing me to address you this evening. My name is Alyssa Druss. I'm with Riot Hospitality Group, and I'm the government relations representative, 7525 East Camelback. The venues that operate in the entertainment district are held to incredibly high monitored policies regulated by the state and the city. Alcohol consumption by patrons is monitored and regulated. More importantly, we do not allow alcohol to leave our premise. The proposed liquor store will start serving liquor at 8 a.m. This will give ample time for bad actors to become intoxicated long before restaurants, bars, venues are open. Operating on a Friday and Saturday night is the worst time to be selling alcohol in the entertainment district. There's no way to monitor if a person has recently purchased alcohol, how large of a purchase, how much may have been consumed before walking into an establishment. Suppose the same person is denied entry because of over-intoxication. In that case, the likelihood of this person putting others in harm's way or potentially damaging or defacing property is a real situation. As you may know, the State Liquor Board criteria for review includes taking testimony from those who own property within the 1 mile proposal. The city of Scottsdale owns property within the 1 mile proposal, and there should therefore actively oppose this application. We also encourage the City Council to enact a text amendment requiring conditional use permits for liquor stores, vape stores, or convenience store applications in the downtown area. In closing, the Arizona statute 4-203A notes as a requirement of approving a liquor license application, quote, that the best interest of the community will be substantially served by the issuance in this license, end quote. This is clearly not the case. The liquor store application in no way substantially serves the community. In fact, the Scottsdale community has spoken through letters and comments, and the council, please, the city of Scottsdale is adamantly opposed to this application. Thank you for your time.
Next, we have Jude Naw and then Bill Crawford.
Well, good evening, Mayor Ortega, City Council. My name is Jude Now. I own the Best Western Plus Sundial at 7320 East Camelback Road, and I have lived on that same site since 1993, less than 100 yards from the applicant's proposed store. And I've sent you a letter. I assume that you've read it. I've got a couple issues. The first applicant's rep was going around to non-stakeholders looking for support. And so in my letter, I respectfully challenged all those signatures. Secondly, I did receive a call, possibly from Vanessa. And in that telephone call, I was confused because Vanessa said the City of Scottsdale Police Department support this. Can I get some clarification on that? She said that there's no opposition by the City of Scottsdale Police Department. And that blows my mind because I read the report. The report says no and opposition, as if there's opposition. So I think there's some maybe honest misunderstanding, but it did seem to sound like I was being coerced into thinking the Scottsdale Police Department does support this. And what I understand is the police department figures there are major life safety issues. Another point on the applicant's application under parking, contrary to their impact study, the surrounding street network does not provide sufficient access to this 2 a.m. business. Scottsdale Police blocks access to Saddlebag. Scottsdale Police Department closes vehicular traffic to the U between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. During that time is the peak business of the nightclub district. And that would be the peak business time of this proposed business. So the only customers walking into this business would be doing just that, walking into the business. And then finally, there's talk about, it's going to be, the liquor store is going to be beautiful and the operators on the up and up, and good for them. But I tell you something, if AJ's Fine Foods was proposing this same business, I would be opposed to it. Because to have a bachelor herd of Canadians show up in downtown Scottsdale, walk into that liquor store, buy as much as they can walk out with, that's the business's prerogative. However, now they're armed with more liquor than they can possibly consume, with no control, no monitoring, as was suggested by previous speakers. So I request respectfully that you forward a recommendation of denial. Thank you.
Bill Crawford, then Jason Morris.
Greetings, Mayor and Council. I'm Bill Crawford. My address is on record. My wife and I live pretty much across the street from the entertainment district. My business is across the alley from the entertainment district for 25 years. As a downtown Scottsdale business owner, you know that I have worked hard and long with the entertainment district, the non-entertainment business community, and the residential neighbors for many, many years to ensure compatibility and safety downtown. Early on, when the bar district first started to spring up, we identified several issues and we worked hard with the city to solve these problems. 6 policies and ordinances have served us well for many years. Now before us is a proposal that we think is a very bad idea. And the main issue is public safety. Lots of other issues, but the main issue is public safety. By the way, I had 10 years experience in the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office where I served. The Scottsdale Police Department developed policies and procedures for the nightclubs which are closely followed. These include de-escalation training and safeguards to protect everyone from over-serving. If approved, having a liquor dispensary embedded in the center of the nightclubs will make it impossible to protect us against over-serving. It will also be difficult to establish liability when lawsuits arrive from over-serving as to who done it. It's very ambiguous, and it puts the bar owners in jeopardy. Along with over-serving, issues of littering, and the alcohol will be consumed on public streets and in parking lots. We've been there before. It's really ugly. Yes, there are businesses that sell alcohol in nearby proximity, but bringing it into the entertainment district, there's lots of barriers, and it makes it very difficult for this to happen. Why should we want to make it easy on them? This proposed operation will provide seamless, convenient accessibility to uncontrolled, unmeasurable consumption. Also, the quantity of alcohol will be in pints and quarts. I'm sure the applicants are very nice people with an entrepreneur's concept that would bring benefit to themselves, but it would bring serious, unmanageable problems to the entertainment district and the neighborhoods. It's in our ideology to not regulate free enterprise, but the first responsibility that we all have and that you all have is public safety. Please keep that in mind, and please do not approve this project. Thank you.
So we have Jason Morris and then LaDonna Spongeberg.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. Jason Morris with the Morris 2525 East Arizona Biltmore Circle.
on behalf of several underlying property owners, but more specifically the EPG Group and the controlling ownership of the Galleria, nearby neighbors obviously within 1 mile. I don't want to reiterate much of what has already been said this evening because I think it's been heard loud and clear, but I would like to touch on basically what is a compatibility standard. And unlike so many liquor-related uses within the city of Scottsdale, this liquor-related use as a liquor store does not require a council use permit. Because it does not require that council use permit, it can go virtually anywhere as a use by right that the zoning underlying that property permits. In this instance, it popped up. There is the liquor license aspect of it. And because we are dealing with just a transfer, we're limited as a city and as the public as to what we can address with that transfer. Staff adequately laid that out. But I'd like to reiterate a few points. One, the police department, your police department, has noted significant concerns with this application and the impacts of that application. And that is probably the most pressing issue, because if we talk about compatibility with this transfer, which is really what is being considered, as you look at the state law and they talk about evidence concerning the nature of the proposed business, its potential market, think about who that potential market would be, because I believe we've heard repeatedly who this will be marketed to, as well as its likely customers. The compatibility of the proposed business with other activity within 1 mile of the proposed premises, and the effect or impact on activities of businesses or the residential neighborhood that might be affected. All of those work in favor of denying this or recommending this be denied by the state. With that, thank you for your time. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. And again, I would urge your support for the community in denying this application. Thank you.
Finally, I show LaDonna Spongeberg. So we had a list of in-person and telephonic. And at this point, I will open up, well, before we have a motion, I would open up the council for any questions they may have or clarifications. And I see officers here. Officer Bailey, you have a very famous name, sir. And I've known some of the finest here in Scottsdale. Can you give us more additional information?
Yes, Mayor, members of council. I just wanted to give a unique perspective that I have based on some experience. I've worked for the City of Scottsdale Police Department for 17 years, and ironically, of those 17 years, 15 of them have all been spent in the downtown entertainment district. I've seen the growth, I've seen the change, and I've been able to be a part of a lot of that, the conversation with the community as well as constituents that are there. The City of Scottsdale Police Department, based on our experience, has seen some of the change that is going on in the area, and we do have some concerns in relation to the safety and security of the particular establishment that's going to go in there. Based on my experience in the area, patrons like to come in, they pre-party, so they might drink alcohol in vehicles and things like that, which is somewhat part of that area that is a major concern for us. People that have access to alcohol prior to entering establishments where it is regulated quite heavily brings another layer of safety and security concern for us, that someone might get overly intoxicated prior to. Some of the establishments may or may not miss those signs. And so then you have someone who has access to that alcohol before that. There's adjacent businesses that are in the area that have some concerns that are related to littering and trash, which we've seen an increased amount of. And we believe that with this establishment, it might bring that. There is some receptacles in the area and trash in the area, but people who generally consume alcohol in the area, based on my experience, would bring more of an element to that might add some layers of difficulty for us. And then finally, the impact, what it might have to staffing and things that we would have to put more attention to a longer set of hours of people consuming alcohol. They are proposing to open up at 8 a.m. in the morning, which means people could access that alcohol at an earlier time. They could consume that alcohol out on the street, which would possibly require more resources to attend to that. Lastly, we use that area as an entertainment area. We have certain specific events that we do license in the area. This particular establishment would actually be part of that overlay, which would create another layer of trying to protect or either put it in or out that would create an element of safety and security that we'd have to address. Those are the concerns that the PD has at the time and are laying out for your recommendation. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer.
I do not see any. Well, let me ask you one. Is there any local criteria for a liquor store near a park? Is there any distance criteria?
Near a park?
Yeah, in Scottsdale.
No, there is relation to public schools and places of worship.
Thank you. Okay, well, at this point, I'd like to get we have several comments coming from council, but let me also get to City Attorney Scott, if there's any commentary to add to the information.
Thank you, Mayor. Typically, we would allow the applicant a short period of time to respond to public testimony if they have a response. I'm not sure if they want to take a moment for that.
Yes, you have 5 minutes. How's that?
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Appreciate that. There was a lot of opposition that we saw from a lot of our local competitors. But what I didn't hear from anybody was why this particular location doesn't work. We heard a lot of generic comments about how liquor stores are bad and how serving alcohol is bad. A little bit ironic coming from what seemed to be mostly purveyors of alcohol in that exact area. But I wanted to address just a couple of things. There was some confusion about what the Scottsdale Police Department's recommendation was. In the report that you all got, what we saw was they identified some generic problems that come generally from liquor sales, but they didn't recommend denial or identify any particular problems with this specific location or with these specific applicants. And so when we represented that we were not aware of any opposition from Scottsdale PD, that was based on the report that you've all received and that we also viewed. The gentleman who brought it, who I guess snuck in a bunch of small bottles of liquor. They're not going to sell small bottles of liquor. It sounds like what they're worried about is that that the bar owners will not be able to do their job and they'll mistakenly serve over intoxicated people. That's a problem not created by this particular location. As already noted, there's a Fry's and other grocery stores. People can buy alcohol anywhere they want, including at Series 6 bars. So what we haven't heard is anything that says this particular location increases any of the problems in the area. We've heard complaints about trash. I mean, I honestly, I don't know how to address that people may create more trash. That's true of any liquor store. That's just a generic comment against liquor stores. The fact that it'll open at 8 a.m., my clients looked around, almost universally liquor stores open at 8 a.m. in Scottsdale. This body has apparently approved liquor stores for opening at 8 a.m. As noted, Fry's and all the other stores, they're open even earlier than that. So what we didn't hear was anything that identified why this particular location would be a problem. We've identified problems with liquor in general and with liquor stores in general, and apparently people don't like these particular things, but there's nothing that's inconsistent with what's going on in the general area. As noted, this is a mixed use area. You're promoting residential. It's not just young people coming to go to the bars. And this is exactly the kind of amenity that people like that would want to see. I would note Mr. Yono told me that he's had liquor licenses in Scottsdale for 30 years. He's actually gotten commendations from Scottsdale PD for his efforts to prevent underage drinking. These folks know that they're legally prohibited from serving intoxicated people. And they're going to fulfill their obligations, just like the bar owners state that they will do, to not violate the law, to not allow public intoxication. Drinking alcohol in public is against the law. They obviously can't prevent people from doing that, but liquor stores are not responsible for people violating the law. I see Vanessa wants to tell you something. Can you come up? Is it okay if? I know we've got a few minutes.
Certainly, you got 2 minutes.
Yeah.
I just want to know also, sorry, I'm very short. I just want to know also, we did a lot of studies, and although the gentleman said San Diego is not the same as Scottsdale, the areas that we did the studies were very identical. What some close people that we studied actually have a liquor store on the bottom of an Intercontinental hotel, which is equal to or better than the W. So, you know, the studies that we did in those same areas really help with our concept. So it's not like we're bringing in a low-end liquor store. They're going to have high bottles that are very expensive. It's not, you know, lower end type of liquor.
Anything else? I think that's all we have. I'm happy to answer any questions that you all might have.
Okay, at this point, I see Councilwoman Caputi wishes to speak.
Thank you, Mayor. I have no issue with the applicant or the building use. I actually have a problem with the location for this use, this specific location. That's my issue. I don't believe this is in the best interest of our community. This is right in the center of our entertainment district. We're already experiencing an increase in violent crime in this area, and easier access to alcohol is certainly not going to help our problem. I spent some time over the summer in the U of our entertainment district with the Scottsdale Police Department, and it is a pretty wild scene. Adding more alcohol outlets will be detrimental to our public safety issues downtown. As the Scottsdale Police Department pointed out in our packets, the possibility of purchase and consumption of alcohol immediately prior to or after venue attendance is a concern, as well as consuming alcohol in the street. These factors increase the potential for disturbances and altercations surrounding the establishment. Our police department already has its hands full on weekend nights in this location specifically. We want to make our downtown a safe, desirable, thriving location for residents and tourists, and I don't think this application accomplishes that goal. I move that the City Council forward to the Arizona Department of Liquor Licenses and Control a recommendation to disapprove the applicant's request to transfer a liquor license to this location because the public convenience and the best interests of the community will not be served by a retail liquor license at this location when considering factors 1, 6, 8, 9, 11, and 12 of the state's applicable administrative regulation R19-1-702 and the evidence presented and contained in the hearing record tonight.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. There's discussion from Councilmember Durham and then Vice Mayor Janik.
Yes, I would like to offer a friendly amendment to the motion. I think after the word because, if it's agreeable, I would like to add that it is not compatible with activity within 1 mile, period. And then continue the language saying the public convenience and the best interests of the community will not be served by a retail liquor license, et cetera, et cetera.
We have a request. The maker of the motion, would you consider that?
I would have to defer to the city attorney because I'm literally taking the language directly from her suggestion.
It's fine for the council, Mayor, to amend the motion, and that way there's no exact way that motion needs to go. It's if the council thinks those additional items are another reason to recommend disapproval, then the council can amend the motion in that way. And in this case, it would have to be up to Councilwoman Caputi, the motion maker, and Councilwoman Littlefield, the person who seconded the motion.
Councilman Durham, can you read that one more time, your changes?
Yes, I think after the word
Because
I would add, it is not compatible within activity within 1 mile, period. And then I would start the new sentence, the public convenience and the best interest of the community, et cetera, et cetera.
I'm okay with that. It doesn't change the intent of the motion. That's fine with me.
I'm okay with that.
Okay, we have a reconstituted motion, and we have Vice Mayor Janik, then Councilwoman Littlefield and Whitehead.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yes.
Venues in the entertainment district have the ability, if a patron is intoxicated, to remove them from the premises and to cut them off from alcohol consumption. Many establishments in the Scottsdale Entertainment District have table service, so they can do a very good job of monitoring alcohol consumption and keeping an eye on their customers. With a liquor store in this area, there is an opportunity for purchase and consumption that is unmonitored. This poses an additional burden for establishments in the entertainment district, as others have already said this evening. We are already dealing with an uptick in problem behavior in our entertainment district, just like happens in all the cities across our country. And a liquor store in this location, specifically in the entertainment district, will add to the problem. The Scottsdale Police have done a terrific job of addressing the current situation and the current problems and getting them under control. But I don't think, and I don't want them to have to deal with an additional burden. They're already putting in quite a few hours, a lot of overtime, difficult job, and I respect all that they do, but I don't want to add any more to this burden. So I am opposed to this liquor store in this particular location. And it has nothing to do with the person who's proposed it, because I do believe that he's well-intentioned, but it is just the nature of this location that adds an additional burden to the city. So thank you.
Councilwoman Littlefield and then Councilwoman Whitehead.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I have a couple of issues with this. One thing, I don't like personal attacks on applicants who come before us wanting things. I don't think that's appropriate. But the other thing is, I have an issue with the unmonitored use of alcohol in an area that's already very heavily alcoholed, if you will, and that we already have issues and problems in. And so I really don't see that it's in the best interest of the city to add to that issue, to add to those problems. So that's why I do support this motion, and I will be voting for it. Thank you.
Councilwoman Whitehead and then Durham.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to thank the applicants for being here, and I want to thank you for your work to stop underage drinking. I really appreciate it. I don't agree with the location change, but I hope you'll keep up the good work in other parts of our city. And so I will be supporting this motion, but I do thank you.
Councilmember Durham.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to reiterate, as everyone, excuse me, as everyone else has, that this has nothing to do with the applicants. We never heard any problems from you. I'm sure you have a fine record, but this is just the wrong location. It's the wrong place. And I want to go into some detail about the location. I have very grave concerns about the safety of the public and especially the safety of our police and policing in this area. And I think that this use is incompatible with the surrounding neighborhood as defined in the regulations. Many people have heard recently about the gunfire on Craftsman Court. but I want to highlight some instances taking place in the entertainment district, which probably haven't gotten the same publicity. And all of these instances, I believe, took place within a very short distance from the proposed store. I'm going to list only incidents involving violence and firearms. And even with that limitation, it's a pretty long list. On February 4th of this year, everything is this year, 2 men were beaten unconscious outside of the Pretty Please lounge, which is literally across the street from the proposed location. The following evening, February 5th, there was a verbal altercation at the Paris nightclub, and between 2 females. One of them produced a gun and pointed it at the other. On April 29th, there was a case of reckless driving, extreme drunkenness, and 6 illegal guns were seized from the car. And the next instance, May 1st, I don't have the exact location in this one, I'm sorry, but I'm sure it was in the same area. A driver failed to admit to a firearm in the vehicle and then failed to admit to a second illegal firearm in the vehicle. So that night there were 2 illegal guns seized. The following night, May 2nd, there was a physical altercation on Saddlebag outside of the El Jefe nightclub, and the prior offender was suspected of dropping a stolen firearm. On May 8th, there was an armed robbery in the vicinity, and the perpetrator ran from the scene, hid his firearm. He assaulted officers, resisted arrest, and the second offender with him failed to obey the police and was also arrested. On May 17th, there was a fight outside of the Pretty Please nightclub. One of the offenders ran from the scene, and a gun magazine fell from his waistband. And this person was a prohibited possessor, which I assume means he was legally prohibited from carrying the firearm that he was possessing. June 5th, an off-duty officer working at the International nightclub tried to stop a fight outside the nightclub. The primary offender fled and resisted arrest. Other offenders attempted to intervene and free the primary offender from police custody. On June 19th, there was an altercation between 2 females and several males leaving the International nightclub. A male stole a phone from one of the females and assaulted the other by punching her in the face. The other female retrieved a handgun from her vehicle and fired 2 rounds toward the males. On June 24th, just a few days later, there was a discharge of a firearm with multiple rounds outside the Casa Amigos. July 4th, there was an aggravated assault outside of the Pretty Please nightclub, which once again, I think is directly across the street from the proposed location. On July 5th, the following night, at the closing of the Paris nightclub, officers attempted to intervene and break up a fight. Other members of the group began to assault the officers in an attempt to free the detained person. 5 offenders were arrested. Firearms were located in the vehicles, but no arrests were made because I presume the weapons were legal. July 5th, the same night, there were shots fired in the area of 7350 East 6th Avenue. There were 12 shell casings from 9mm and 40 caliber guns found there. July 11th, a suspect was observed walking on Camelback, flashing a handgun outside of the south curb of the Pretty Please nightclub. That person was involved in a physical alteration, and he produced a handgun and brandished it at the other persons involved in the fight. 7th, July 12th, a 390 driver. I'm not sure what that means. I assume it's probably a drunken driver. Actually, I'm sorry, that one's a Craftsman Court incident, and so I'm not going to bring that one up. I'm trying to limit myself to the entertainment district. So forget that last one. But what this tells me is that this is already an extremely dangerous area where our citizens are in danger, actually, sometimes at night. Many people have been hurt. And I'm particularly concerned with the policemen here. Policemen have been assaulted numerous times. And so I think that this situation, by introducing liquor into this situation, as many other people have mentioned, is going to lead to increased accessibility to the liquor. Probability of drinking on the street is very high. The bottles can be easily concealed, even if they're not the little bottles that I believe that Mr. Thomas produced. And many of the people in this area are carrying guns. Unfortunately, the record shows that. And so this is just a volatile atmosphere to me to put a liquor store into this area when we already have significant problems with crime, as I've just outlined. So I think that this location is just totally incompatible with the surrounding environment. And for that reason, I'm supporting Councilmember Caputi's motion. Thank you.
Thank you. I have my own comments regarding the recommendation for denial based on location. City of Scottsdale has long held zoning right and a long process regarding the Old Town downtown area. We prohibit drive-through restaurants. We do that for a reason. They sell hamburgers or quick food or whatever. And the city of Scottsdale, for our business well-being, for the experience of enjoying some hospitality in a restaurant, has chosen to disallow drive-through restaurants and drive-through liquor stores in downtown. So we have the prerogative as a city of exercising the kind of control that will build our city and support in every way law enforcement, hours of operation, security plan, conditional use permit for controlled substances. I say that because the other topic, which was mentioned by the applicant, had to do with medical marijuana dispensary, which is also controlled substance, and which by ordinance, the city of Scottsdale, since 2016, has been prohibited in the downtown business district as a dispensary, and therefore with the legalized sale of a controlled substance. So, city of Scottsdale is well within our rights to shape the city so that certainly the opportunity to sit and enjoy a restaurant, employ people and so forth in that environment, and the ambiance that the city provides because we have so many venues in Scottsdale versus having patrons exit to a convenient drive-through fast food restaurant. Just doesn't happen here. So if you look around, that's why. And in this case, I'm applying the same location thought and criteria as you look at this and as the right of the city to impose our own zoning restrictions for the good of control. There are many problems with controlled substances that have been discussed and disclosed here, and we do not want to add to them with a point of sale which would have no control in terms of what is under control within the premises of the establishment. There is no restriction as far as the size of liquor which could be sold or might be sold verbally or otherwise. And there again, that danger was expressed here in public for the record. I heard it. I believe it is a potential obstacle danger, whether they look like those little airline liquor bottles. There is no restriction that could not be done. And I think that is a concern for everyone. So I do support the motion, and I believe that we have grounds in terms of our, and we will send that message to the state of Arizona in a very strong way, that we are particular in how, for instance, defending the drive-throughs, additional traffic, air pollution, but mainly because we want people to come in, sit down, and we can monitor what's on the menu and how it's delivered. So with that, I see no other comment. I will ask for your vote. Please register your vote. Thank you. It passes unanimously. We will now proceed to the next regular agenda item. Which I believe is the Old Town Bicycle Master Plan. Item number 30.
Good evening, Mayor Ortega and City Council. Now for something a little bit more positive than what we had just discussed. Appreciate the opportunity to provide a project summary and recommendations for the Old Town Scottsdale Bicycle Master Plan, which is an important piece of our expanding active transportation network. The Old Town Bicycle Master Plan is being funded in large part through the Maricopa Association of Governments Active Transportation Program. Transportation staff began this effort in the summer of 2019. The purpose of the Bicycle Master Plan is to identify routing options and make recommendations to address the gaps into and through the Old Town area for cyclists while increasing active transportation opportunities and providing greater area connections in the downtown. This master plan is focused on making recommendations to enhance the network within the limits of the Old Town Scottsdale and improve connectivity to regional pathways surrounding Old Town Scottsdale, such as the Indian Bend Wash Path Arizona Canal Path, and the Crosscut Canal Path, all within a half-mile of Old Town. This plan will help integrate more biking into the area, which is full of activity centers and destinations. The project team analyzed other planning documents such as the Old Town Scottsdale Character Area Plan, which identifies 10 districts shown here on a slide within Old Town Scottsdale. In addition to evaluating the bicycle infrastructure into and within Scottsdale, in addition to evaluating the bicycle infrastructure into and within Old Town Scottsdale as a whole, the project team also explored the bicycle trip interaction between these 10 districts to aid in the identification and prioritization of key bicycle routes. Evaluating Old Town Scottsdale by district allowed the team to identify where additional bicycle infrastructure would provide the most benefit to the bicycle network. The project purpose was further broken down into 4 project goals to align with our recommendations. Overall, we focus on providing low stress, low volume, on-street facilities for cyclists. The project formally kicked off in April of 2020. The consultants assigned to the project held a visioning workshop in May of 2020 with participation from over 20 staff representing several city departments. The team analyzed city planning documents, data, existing conditions, and gaps and barriers in the network during the summer of 2020. In the fall, the team began shaping the public outreach plan. This slide shown here summarizes the planning process. A project webpage was created and included a virtual open house in December. This open house included a recorded slide presentation, questionnaire for citizens. There were 79 responses to the questionnaire with feedback on how people bike in Old Town and the challenges they experience. This slide also shows the other means of passing on information that were part of this project. In the spring of 21, a series of stakeholder sessions were held over a 3-week period. Each week focused on a different aspect of the planning project that included 3 separate stakeholder groups per week. Several types of stakeholders were represented as shown in the diagram with the Old Town Scottsdale Bicycle Master Plan project. The purpose of these stakeholder sessions first were to familiarize stakeholders with the Old Town Scottsdale Bicycle Master Plan project. Second was to present and receive input on proposed key routes and familiarize stakeholders with low stress bicycle environments. Thirdly was to present and discuss specific recommendations per route and the overreaching bicycle network recommendations. The series of focus groups provided each group time to discuss the information in detail and gather input on the recommendations of the Bicycle Master Plan. The feedback from the various stakeholders represented a wide range of partners, was overall supportive for biking. A common discussion point was a need to make the Old Town bike network safe for all users, to support the diverse people that live, work, and visit Old Town. Additional feedback reinforced input from the virtual open house questionnaire about the need to connect people to, from, in, and around Old Town Scottsdale. An important discussion point was quantity and quality of implementation. The majority of feedback from the focus groups indicated that quantity was far more important than quality, yet not at the sake of safety. This helped shape the factors to consider for implementation of each future improvement. There were several factors that helped determine the key routes. And these included, you show on the screen, existing and planned bikeways, major destinations or where people want to go, gaps in the system, and what we heard from the community through the public input process. Once gaps in the system were identified, the team moved on to identifying the key routes. The focus here was to improve the connectivity to the off-street network, including the canals and multi-use path system, as well as provide low-stress, low-volume options for a wide range of cyclists. It is important to provide routes to the area from every direction. As you can see in here, 3 are east-west, 2 are north-south. Route number 1 is highlighted in the graphic shown on the slide and will be discussed in more detail. This was along 2nd Street. This slide shows a detailed look at one route that follows 2nd Street. This corridor has a combination of existing path and bike lanes with planned improvements for the rest of the segment to link together. This route is important as a low-stress connection between the Indian Bend Wash path to the Civic Center Plaza, across Old Town to the Arizona Canal path. Along the way, there are shops, restaurants, the upcoming Museum Square project, and residential areas. Close coordination with both the Civic Center Master Plan and 2nd Street improvements will occur, as well as the facilities, as with facilities and the library staff, to ensure that a safe route near the parking garage and in conjunction with the library pickup and drop-off area. Please note that the design phase will determine what type of engineering is needed in these future corridors. There are several types of improvements in a project toolbox to utilize. These are some broad categories that staff will evaluate several of these for each route during the design phase. The slide lists several that we will consider. However, we do understand that continual coordination is needed with all of the downtown projects, both public and private. The team, for the next steps, the team is currently refining the master plan document with comments from the staff and looking to finalize the document shortly. An update and summary of the plan will be added to the project webpage. The key routes and the recommendations will be integrated into the neighborhood bikeways portion of our transportation action plan, which will be going out for public comment in the near future for a community input phase of that planning process. This concludes my presentation, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that the mayor and council may have.
Councilwoman Whitehead and then Councilmember Durham.
First off, Mark, thank you. It was fun to read this, and I'm obviously going to be very enthusiastic. A couple of questions. Just on the Second Street, how are you going to get around that parking garage? Because I always get lost.
Well, Mayor and City Council, Councilwoman Whitehead, we just to give a little bit more feedback, and I wanted to show Second Street because I think it illustrated everything that we're dealing with downtown, and it was a straight shot between the off-street network and then the improvements. But to answer your question, we're working with a library section because there was some conflict between their pickup and drop off of the library system. And so we're working with them on the exact route for the cyclist to be able to pass through that area. That's one of the challenges that we have, but we'll be working through that.
Okay, yeah, thank you, because I was so paranoid after I found out that I'm not allowed to buzz through on my bike that I went into all kinds of traffic to get around. But so thank you for, yeah, I'll be.
And some of that will also be in coordination with the Civic Center Master Plan.
Okay, great. So a couple questions. I don't know if are a couple things that I would like to see, and I didn't know if you're at that level of specificity yet, but I've noticed that there's the little plastic barriers when you're biking. And I know you said cost, you're balancing cost, but you're riding on some bike lanes and there's these little plastic things. They're kind of sticks. Just want to throw that out. We've had, obviously a lot of bicycle deaths. So I thought maybe that might be kind of cool. We're seeing a lot of Tempe and other places. We're seeing bright green colors in the bike lanes. I just want to throw that out. If you could kind of give us more, if the next round can have more specificity. Let's see, I wanted to know about if you are looking at, as part of this, the delayed pedestrian crosswalk that's cropping up different places. It's where the lights all turn red and the pedestrians have kind of a head start. And so they're really in the middle of the road before the light for the cars. I don't know if you've seen that.
And Mayor and council members, councilwoman Whitehead, you're talking about a signal that would be primarily a phased for bicyclists?
Well, it's phased for pedestrians. So you have, like, if you have a four-way stop sign, all four ways for the cars are red, and there's a little delayed start for the pedestrians. So I just thought I'm starting to see that in different cities. I can bring that back to the team, and then also have our ITS staff look at that option. Okay, so I had another idea that I think our city manager had shut down previously, so I'll bring it up again. It's the scramble concept at Camelback and Scottsdale Road. And I think I had heard that it's mostly used in big cities, but a resident or residents or our ears and eyes to the world reported Prescott has scrambles now. So I just wanted to throw scramble back out there. It's just kind of a cool way. It makes a miserable intersection a little more fun if it worked. So I think those were all my ideas. And really, again, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Durham, and then Councilwoman Caputi.
Thank you, Mayor. Many of the routes are not straight lines. So is there going to be some signage saying turn right, or will it be done by marking the paths or something to sort of signal where there are turns? Because a lot of these are kind of jig-jagged around.
Councilman Durham, we, as part of this project, we would look for wayfinding signage, okay, as well as markings in the street that they're called share lane markings, where a motorist would understand that he or she is sharing the street with a cyclist.
Okay. I have several other comments, some of which reflect council members Whitehead's suggestions. I've seen those little plastic lane flags used in many places, Chicago and New York. particularly, and I think they're very effective because obviously a car can drive right through them, but it's a signal and it's I think a mental note to a driver that that's not their lane when the bike lane is separated by those little flags. The same with painted lanes, that it's more of a cue to the driver that that's not their property. We probably don't have the lane width in most places, but in some parts of the country, there's a line of parallel parking that sort of takes over part of the street, and then the bike lane is between the curb and the parallel parking lane. That's a very good concept if we could ever do that, although it's probably going to be hard in our streets. The last thing I wanted to ask about is if you have looked into the issue of putting up bike stations anywhere on these routes. And a bike station is sort of a vertical fixture where a person can hang their bike and there are tools that are connected to the station. And I realize it's a target for vandalism, but that seems to me that it's at least something to think about, is to put up these stations at good locations, and the stations can have QR codes, so someone can flash QR code to figure out how to fix their derailleur, their brake, or fix a flat tire, and many of these have pumps also, so that you can pump up your tire. There is an issue of cost involved because they're fairly expensive, and there's vandalism issue too. I haven't really done any research into how they work in other cities, but I think it's at least something that's worth looking at to improve our bicycle ways.
Thank you for that input.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Caputi and then Councilwoman Littlefield.
Thank you, Mark, for the presentation. As an avid cyclist myself, I'm super excited about having a bicycle master plan. I just had one question. You mentioned about the Maricopa Association of Governments when you first started talking, and I feel like I remember something in an email or in the packet somewhere about how we were actually going to fund this wonderful idea. And I would love to hear a little bit more of the details. I'm just interested in how we're going to pay for this. Is it MAG money or is it city?
Councilwoman Caputi, I didn't catch all of that, but it was regarding the application that we put forth with MAG for their funding through their PED bike, I call it their committee. That is we have an opportunity to provide applications on a yearly basis, and we've been very successful. We had a 70th Street, which was a project that we've completed in the planning phase. It provides the opening phase of the project so that you can set the tone and move into design and construction. So that's what this money is for, and there's only a small amount of local match for those funds.
Okay, so we're taking advantage of MAG funding to. Okay.
It's a yearly application.
Lovely, thank you.
Councilwoman Littlefield and then back to Councilwoman Whitehead.
Thank you very much. And I'm going to display a lot of ignorance on this, so just be patient with me. My notes are a mess. First of all, does this include motorized bicycles or skateboards in any way? The plans that we're going to be looking at?
This is primarily for cyclists in the street. I don't know the exact regulations for skateboards but scooters could also use this route. We're trying to, as you know, get them in the street environment and off of our sidewalks where possible. And I think this is a low stress, low volume route for that type of use also.
Okay. The reason I ask is I watch, sometimes I just go down and watch what people are doing in the various motorized or non-motorized vehicles. And the motorized bikes seem to want to be on the street but they'll go up on the sidewalks if something gets in their way. And so I'm wondering if we're going to have any kind of plan on how to regulate a motorized bicycle, since they're coming more and more into use. Also, I think skateboards go in and out and roundabout traffic, parked cars on the street, back again, causing some rather serious problems sometimes. And so I wanted to know if that was going to be a part of this discussion or plan also.
In terms of parking, there'll be no changes to the parking, but I think what we're trying to do is create an environment through some of these design features that we're able to implement in these corridors to make it safer for everyone, so that they acknowledge that the roadway is being shared. We're hoping that that provides connections through and within the on-street to the off-street network on both ends of Old Town.
Okay, well, I am moderately supportive of this because I know a lot of people like to bicycle, and a lot of people use our paths and our trails and the canal banks and all other kinds of places in order to bike. And they are extremely dedicated, I guess I'd say. And so I think having a master plan in Scottsdale for bicycling is a very good idea. And I really like the connectivity idea, so that they don't end up having bicycle paths and trails and then all of a sudden end up on the street, because my major concern for all of this is safety. And that should be the focus through which we look at this plan and approve it and go forward with it. They're very vulnerable to accidents, to car accidents, to being hit. And they're usually the ones that get the worst of it if they are hit. So to me, safety is the number one priority. Stressing better vision for the bicyclists and for the cars and drivers of cars is huge. So I like having a separate path for them. I think that's a good thing. Interaction improvements, parking locations. Does this, I think I asked you, this doesn't include that, so that's okay. I'm done with that. I don't want to add a whole lot of layers of unnecessary paper and regulation and stuff like this. Should be a fun, free activity for people to, and I'm talking free, not monetarily free, but mentally free, to be able to get on your bike and ride somewhere and have a good time. I did have one little question on something I noticed that they were saying on the Old Town Bicycle Master Plan route connections, that they wanted to connect to private developments like Gentry on the Green, Museum Square, and things like that. And I just wanted to know, and I'm sure it isn't, but I wanted to know, could this be considered a gift of public monies to a private enterprise? Because I don't think that's...
You know, Councilwoman Littlefield, I don't know if I could answer that. We would do whatever, if we have these types of issues, we would look through help from legal staff on any concerns that we would have.
Because I know in general, you can, go throughout the city, but if you actually target a private enterprise, I'm wondering if that would cause us any kind of legal problem. Just a question. I don't know. You can answer that one if you want to.
Mayor, if I may, and Councilwoman Littlefield, I would have to see the mechanism for that moving forward. My guess is if the city wanted to put a bicycle trail as part of the city's bicycle infrastructure, there would be some sort of easement affiliated with that, and we'd be working with a property owner regarding that easement. And we'd certainly be making sure that it met all of the requirements of the charter and the state's constitution regarding gifts. Again, we'd have to dig into those details, and we're certainly more than happy to work with the transportation on that when the time comes.
Thank you. As I say, I'm very supportive of having this kind of a master plan of bicycling and knowing what we're doing and having a place to do it in. So all of that is good, but I think safety has to be the highest priority, and it has to be something that comes before any changes that we make, that we're doing something that's safe for the riders. I've seen too many close calls, and there've been some that are calls and aren't close because they get hit. So I really have a big concern with that in downtown especially. There's so many ways people go in so many different directions all at the same time. Cars are backing out, they're going forward, they're turning around, and all of this in the mix of walkers, pedestrians, bicyclists, skateboarders, some of them young kids, and we need to make sure that safety is the top priority on this. I like the idea. I think it's good. And I did have one suggestion, just off as I'm thinking about all this stuff. If we go ahead and make these improvements and we have routes and specific ways of going through on a bicycle path, on a bicycle trail, I think we ought to put those improvements as and include them as a notice in the Downtown Ambassadors informational pamphlets that they have in their carts that they hand out to the people who are walking and traveling in downtown, so that we get the word out. So people know this is what we're doing. This is where it's safe for you to go. So it was just an idea. We need to advertise it, and that would be kind of a fun way to do it since they're already in downtown, and maybe that would be a audience that would be interested in that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Whitehead.
Thank you, Mayor. And I'm going to segue into the cars backing up comment that Councilwoman Littlefield just made. And I did have a conversation with a colleague. So I did have one other suggestion, and perhaps it's already in here. On some sections, like I think Fifth Avenue, where there's diagonal parking. Again, I'm just bringing in all the things that I've seen in other cities. Shared roads, so you don't actually have a bike lane, and perhaps you're thinking about that. Instead, you have a bicycle painted on the lane of the cars. So cars in those small, slow sections, cars and bikes share the lane. So that, number one, would probably slow cars down a little, and they should be going slow, but it puts the bicycle in the middle of the lane, so the cars backing up are more able to see them. Just a final suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Milnichenko. I will now mention that there is no public comment. So at this point, there could be public comment. I see none by telephone or in person. So therefore, I will close public comment. So thank you very much. And I do have one thing to add. We are also tonight, following this item, going to be looking at the Old Town Scottsdale Character Area Plan. And when I review what was projected back in 2018, and I see the refinement that you're proposing today, I think that's very useful that this information can be inserted and go out to the public. One of the most interesting things in downtown is that there is no posted speed limit. I haven't found one. I haven't found one on Fifth Avenue or Stetson or anywhere else. Now we're looking at introducing we have a very unusual situation because we have directional parking on Fifth Avenue, and we have basically one lane in each direction. And as Councilwoman Whitehead pointed out, you have a blind side when you're trying to pull out, and you've got an SUV parked there. And now we are showing that we intend to, have the bicyclists who usually bear to the right in a lane. But in this case, the closer they are to the right, the more in danger they are, because anyone trying to back up, and I've been backing up on Fifth Avenue for 40 years, and you always look twice. I look in the storefront window actually to see if a car's coming, but that's, my little trick to it. Now it's maybe very hard to see a bicyclist in this situation. So I think speed with this concept, it's very good that bicyclists can preview our old town, downtown, and come back and enjoy it. I see how you simplified the routes. And what this says to me is that and I will look for a motion to approve this, which I will support, is that the pedestrian and skateboard and bicyclists using the Old Town area are going to be reduced in speed in this area. When you get reduced speeds, and then you get less accidents, perhaps, but also that reduces the capacity of Fifth Avenue and those areas for 10-story buildings and 12-story outlets in that area. So that's realistic. I know before COVID struck, I checked with the hospitals. They had over 450 injuries, skateboard, motorbike related, in the downtown, mostly in the downtown area. So there is that conflict. At the same time, there's a draw constantly to enjoy the downtown area. And I think that although bicyclists will be able to conduct through this area, they too have to be very cautious. And if they are conducting at the center of Fifth Avenue, which might be the safest point, it's not an area you can flag or say this is exclusive for bicyclists, but because people are backing up in both directions, whether you're going northeast or if you're coming southwest, you're going to have you're going to get some surprises there. With that, I would myself move for approval of the plan, and you have noted our concerns.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any other discussion to the motion? City Attorney, please clarify.
Mayor, this is on your agenda for presentation, discussion, and direction to staff. So if you can just clarify in your motion that you're in agreement with the plan as presented. I think that's the direction that you're intending to give staff. If you can make that clarification, I think that'll be fine with the agenda.
Thank you. And I do clarify that we've provided a lot of input. We thank you for gathering that from the public, and we look forward to really some successful biking and enjoyment of our town. I know my second, we okay with that?
Yes.
Thank you. With that, I will ask for your vote. Please register your vote. Thank you. Unanimous. It is optional. Should council decide to take a 5-minute break, or if you want to continue straightforward. We are carrying on. I just thought I'd mention that, Brian. Our next item is the Old Town Scottsdale Policy, Regulatory, and Guideline Update. We, as council, requested this, and our presenter is Brad Carr, Planning and Development Area Manager.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the council. As you mentioned, Brad Carr with the Planning Department. Before I move on, I also want to note my colleague Adam Yaron, who can't be here tonight, but will continue to be on this project as we move forward. So again, as you mentioned, staff is here in front of you this evening to discuss the Old Town Character Area Plan and associated documents as a result of a work study session that council had with staff on June 22nd. At that session, council gave some feedback on some items they would like the staff to address as part of an update to the Old Town Plan. And so this evening, staff is bringing forward some consideration for council to initiate an update to that plan, that 2018 Old Town Plan, as well as an associated text amendment to the downtown overlay and plan block development zoning districts and any other affected sections as applicable. An amendment to the downtown infill incentive district, and finally some direction to staff on an update to the Old Town Scottsdale urban design and architectural guidelines. Just so we can reestablish ourselves with what document we're looking at here, the 2018 Old Town Character Area Plan, that's the most recent update to this plan. It establishes the city's visions and values for our Old Town area. It also shapes the physical form through various goals and policies. through that document. And it consists of 5 chapters that house those goals and policies, including land use, character and design, mobility, arts and culture, and economic vitality. So as a result of what we heard from council at that June 22nd meeting, staff is bringing forward some considerations for you tonight as far as updates to that actual Old Town plan. As you can see on the screen here, that includes looking at quality new development and redevelopment in the downtown area as part of our outreach and ongoing efforts with this. Also considering the development type designations, locations, and transitions of those development types, as well as looking at our list of land uses and the location of land uses within our Old Town area, the districts and development type designations, making sure those are clear and concise. Also, we want to make sure that the document has an emphasis on providing more interconnected and public open space. We also want to ensure that what we heard from the council was making sure that we provide enhanced focus on transportation, infrastructure, sustainability, tourism, and economic development. That's all within the plan. And finally, looking at reviewing that naming convention of downtown versus Old Town, making sure there's no confusion on the use of those naming conventions within the document. As I mentioned, a companion to an update to the Old Town plan, we'll also be looking at an update to our zoning ordinance. As many of you know, the zoning ordinance is our implementation tool for all the city's various general plans and character area plans. So within the document itself, this outlines our regulatory guidance for development within the Old Town area, specifically within the downtown overlay, and PBD or plan block development areas of the zoning ordinance. So for considerations on updates within the zoning ordinance, staff is going to be reviewing ability perhaps to provide more or stronger development requirements within the zoning ordinance and our guidelines, the use of development flexibility within the zoning ordinance and our guidelines, maintaining, adding, or restricting, or even removing zoning ordinance base and or bonus development standards, a reconsideration of zoning ordinance bonus provisions if they are to be maintained in order to provide greater and better defined public benefits, as well as re-examining bonus payment calculations. And again, I want to reiterate that these are all items that we, as staff, gained from you during your initial discussion of this on June 22nd, both these zoning ordinance considerations and those of the Old Town plan considerations themselves. So I want to take a moment here to talk about how this update fits within the city's organizational strategic plan of 2021-2022. Specifically, the item that's on the right there, that topic of support economic vitality, and more precisely, the item to improve quality and consistency of proposed development in Old Town. A review and update of the Old Town character area plan was part of the goals and objectives of the council with the date of October 31st, 2021 for review. The Old Town strategic plan and that specific goal was drafted prior to that June 22nd meeting. And as a result, staff hasn't really had any direction to work on this until after that meeting and bring forward this item until tonight on August 24th for initiation. As such, because we feel like that we want to maintain best practices in outreach and continued input from the community as well as council and our commissions and boards of commissions, we are looking to extend that date beyond October 31st, 2021 to a March 2022 completion date in order to take into account those best practices with public participation. That's about a 6-month total timeframe as we look at it at this point. So what is that planned public participation that we're anticipating at this point? Again, we're in front of you tonight for possible initiation. Our next session with you would probably be in September on the 21st with a city council work study session, followed shortly by a planning commission non-action session, which is similar to a work study session. Then we would proceed into our public outreach phase, which is October through December is what we're anticipating. Would include 6 open houses, several sets of virtual open houses, some focus groups with our property owners and business owners in the downtown, as well as the results of that would be additional time with the planning commission, again, in more of a work study session and city council as well. Once we wrap that up, when we get all that data into our and we get that input, we're going to move forward towards the actual public hearing process of hearing these cases through City Council, one final work session with them and Planning Commission before we head to Planning Commission for recommendation and City Council adoption in March of 2022. So again, tonight, staff is in front of you for your input and consideration of, again, of initiating a non-major general plan amendment to our Old Town plan, Old Town Scottsdale Character Area Plan. Again, associated with that is initiating a text amendment to our downtown zoning districts, initiation of the amendment to the downtown infill incentive district, and finally directing staff to update the Old Town Scottsdale urban design and architectural guidelines as necessary. A note on that final topic: the architectural guidelines are not necessarily a purview of the City Council. Those are generally reviewed and then ultimately approved by our Development Review Board. So what we're anticipating is that kind of lagging a little bit behind any changes that ultimately get adopted by council through the Old Town Plan and the zoning ordinance. So that would be a further implementation of that update by updating the architectural guidelines to our DRB. Again, that concludes staff's presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Well, thank you. At this point, I would like to call for public comment, and then we will, after that, go to council questions and then proceed this way. So I show in person Bob Henchman.
Thank you, Mayor Ortega, council members. I'm Bob Pejman. The address is on the record. And last week, I sent a list of developments in Scottsdale to the council. It covered the developments that were either built since 2015 or they're currently in the pipeline. Today, I want to focus on the downtown portion of this. Does the overhead work? Okay. Okay, this is a 1 square mile area. It's not a big area. And this is what has happened since 2015. Almost 1,000 units have been built. There's not much as far as under construction and pending approval right now, about 200, but there are almost 1,500 units that are approved but not built, but they will be built because they have been approved and they have been zoned. Next slide focuses on what's in the pipeline. There are currently almost 1,700, or rather 1,700 units that are in the pipeline, almost 2,200 bedrooms, a rough number. The list is pretty well known: Museum Square, Collection, Canal Side, Goldwater, Waterview, Kimsey, Scottsdale Residences, Artisan. That's what's in the pipeline, not built yet. Next, we want to go to the commercial mixed use. The two primary ones are the Collection, the Scottsdale Collection, the Marquee. Almost 851,000 square feet that are approved, not built. But they will be built. Downtown hotels. There are 2 hotels that are under construction. There are 3 that are approved, not built yet. The list is well known: Museum Square, Winfield, Kimsey, Caesar, Dunn and Charlie. Summary: about 1,700 or 1,700 units residential, commercial mixed use, 851,000, about 1,000 hotel rooms, keys. We have not yet seen the impact of these projects on traffic, water supply, heat island effect, infrastructure, sewer capacity, and the impact of the construction. I think that when the council members that say downtown is a growth area, and I agree, it's a growth area, but you have so much growth already approved that's not built. When we look at new projects, we have to consider what's in the pipeline, because otherwise we are approving every project almost like it's the only game in town, and it's not. All this stuff is coming. It's just been delayed because of COVID and it's coming. All of this has to be put into the equation, or else we may be over approving and not accounting for the impacts. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Mr. Bastien Android.
Good evening, Mayor Ortega, members of the council. My name is Bastien Androuet, here on behalf of the Arizona Multi-Housing Association, located at 818 North First Street, Phoenix, Arizona, 85004. Today, I speak to you in regards to the Old Town Scottsdale Policy Regulatory and Guideline Update. The AMA, which represents owners, operators, and developers of over 26,000 rentable housing units in Scottsdale, just wants to caution the council against proposing detrimental amendments to the 2018 Old Town Scottsdale Character Area Plan without the input of the very owners, operators, and developers who revitalized downtown Scottsdale and enabled unparalleled growth for an area previously suffering from a shrinking economy. Any action reducing density and height allowances for new housing developments and reversing the more recent reforms enacted in 2010 and 2018 to the city's zoning code will further exacerbate Arizona's housing shortages. As noted by the Wall Street Journal less than 2 months ago, the United States is millions of housing units behind current demand. In Arizona, this translates to a pre-pandemic need of approximately 230,000 new units, roughly 50,600 of those in Scottsdale alone, just to match current demand per a 2019 Elliott D. Pollock and Company study. It's also important to consider the economic impact of a multifamily development. For example, a 250-unit multifamily development construction generates $1.2 million for the city of Scottsdale, with an estimated additional $415,000 in ongoing annual revenues. This means that if all 50,600 new units were built, the city would stand to gain approximately $247 million in construction revenues, equaling an additional $84 million in ongoing annual revenue by 2030. Furthermore, a recent New York University study uncovered that for every 10% increase in the housing stock, rents decrease 1% and sales prices also decrease within 500 feet in New York. With a similar study of San Francisco identifying that rents fall by 2% for parcels within 100 meters of new construction. Renters' risk of displacement to a lower income neighborhood falls by 17%. Further, by imposing any additional height and density restrictions, the city opens itself to another potential battle with the Arizona legislature, which, as stated in my previous letter, passed Senate Bill 1409 earlier this year. This new law was passed in response to zoning regulations that have added to the cost of housing construction over the years and have contributed to the state's more recent housing affordability issues. The new law reads as follows: before adopting any zoning ordinance or zoning ordinance text amendment of general applicability, the legislative body of a municipality shall consider the probable impact of the proposed zoning ordinance or text amendment on the cost to construct housing for sale or rent. SB 1409 serves as a reminder that the state is now actively examining barriers to housing development and is prepared to take remedial action. I solely mention remedial action as just earlier today, the Arizona Republic published an article speaking to the intent of this ordinance and subsequent actions to limit development in Old Town Scottsdale. Again, local policymakers should be considering ways to reduce barriers to housing construction rather than creating new ones. For these reasons and many more, the AMA cautions the city against moving forward with changes to the Old Town Character Area Plan, especially those that will result in further barriers to increasing the supply of housing in downtown Scottsdale. Thank you.
Thank you very much. With that, I will close public comment on this issue. And I will start council input, which is why we're here today, to provide input and then let that be tested in the community. First of all, the 3 areas of decisions are to allow staff to take whatever we propose forward to the community. For me, transportation, infrastructure, sustainability, and actually the identity of Scottsdale, which is also tourist-based, all have to be taken into account. Often quoted, economic vitality is somehow weighted more over these 4 areas. But I can assure you that there is no economic vitality with traffic gridlock, with overstressed infrastructure, with a choking, unsustainable heat island, or the blading of the legacy part of Scottsdale, which visitors and eventual residents have come to know. So looking at economic vitality as a city, it's our duty to be sure that it would meet those areas. The Old Town Character Area Plan is certainly subject to revision. Page 14 of the document itself said, hey, open it up and see whether it's performing and see how it's performing. It's page 14. The Old Town Character Area architectural guidelines are also in effect. And once again, there is a caution to see whether or not projects that have been approved have met those guidelines or not. Because now we have some projects to consider as well. The PBD and the downtown overlay zoning ordinance are on the table as well. So we're actually looking at actual changes and recommendations that are coming from us as individuals and which may come forward through the public process. As I checked last, there is not one car lane, transportation lane in Scottsdale. As I look at the approvals for past projects, I do not see a master plan, mega plan for how we can keep up with all of the growth. And certainly we have a water issue as well. But I think it's important that we look at what we are not, I repeat, not considering right now as we provide our input as it moves forward. We're not deliberating to change any existing vested approved upzoning that's already of record. If it's there, it had some rules, it may have had some waivers, it may have had some variances. It exists. We are not here to change those vested rights. We are also not, and I think one speaker alluded to it, looking at apartment dwellings outside of the Old Town Scottsdale character area. So we get a lot of comments about the replacement of commercial properties along Scottsdale Road and Hayden, converting them and eroding the commercial existing zoning for apartments. We're not going to talk about that. It's not what we're getting to. We're also not specifically looking at the general plan 2035 because we've already forwarded the text for the general plan. I do want to point out on page 185 of the general plan that's going to the voters, it is specific and it does cross-reference the Old Town Scottsdale character area plan. This is what it says. Building heights generally range between 2 and 6 stories depending on location and district context and may exceed 6 stories in certain areas identified in the Old Town Scottsdale character area plan. At the center of the Old Town growth area is the downtown core. The downtown core is identified, described, and identified by specific boundary in the Old Town character area plan as pedestrian oriented, includes downtown's historic legacy and heritage, specialty retail, art galleries, restaurants, public art, and the highest concentration of individually designed historic buildings found in the city. In contrast to the majority of the area, the downtown core is comprised of the lowest intensity of development in all of Old Town. The small lot development pattern actively at ground level land uses and pedestrian focuses on the downtown core are some of the primary elements that give Old Town its most identifiable character. That's in the general plan. We're not amending that, but that's part of why. And then it says cross-reference Old Town, Scottsdale Character Area Plan. So the subject that we have today is an independent evaluation of some decisions which were made in 2018, and now they're not theoretical anymore. They may have supposed that certain properties could have gone up to 160 feet or 120 feet, added another character level area, and it was essentially not tested. Okay? It was not tested. However, you don't have to look far in the Old Town Character Area Plan. Back, page 4, executive summary states, achieve the community's vision of a dynamic city center which recognizes its Western heritage while boldly looking to its metropolitan future. It's right there, page 4. Metropolitan future. Metropolis, by common definition, is the highest density core which dominates the area. It's typically supercharged with transportation options. And typically, the metropolitan future or metropolis, if you look at the definition, says it relates to New York City, Boston, LA, or Chicago. What I'm saying today is that the script of the Old Town and the consistency of the current Old Town Character Area Plan speaks to a metropolitan future, and it's consistent throughout that. However, most residents came to Scottsdale to leave the metropolitan past. They didn't come to Scottsdale to recreate a metropolis here. Now, we're not interested, I am not interested in looking into a metropolitan future, which can be described, and you can look at all of the urban tests which have been sociologically looked at and think that that is an adequate direction that my city and our city wants to go in. On the contrary, the identity of Scottsdale is low profile, low density, open vistas. It's part of our general plan. It's been written in there, and frankly, the general plan, the valid one that occurs right now is the general plan 2001. 2001 is more valid than the character area plan, in my opinion, of 2018, because there was no supporting document at 2010 when they had a chance to do the general plan and look at those issues before they started re-expressing Scottsdale in our metropolitan future. The version of a metropolis, which the council approved in July 20th, 2018, has actual metrics which can be weighed. For instance, what those decisions did was modify the 2009 criteria when there were only 2 types, 1 and 2. They added type 2.5 and type 3. It was recognized in the 2009 downtown plan update that areas north of the canal might ask for 150 feet. And it was recognized that the hospital, which was already, at quite a height, was also recognized within that document. But again, there's no substitute for a general plan. There's no substitute for dialogue that decides what kind of density and what kind of transportation obligations we're going to make. So let's look at a few actual examples. For instance, the marquee. The marquee, and as I make these statements, they may be applicable to either the zoning as it comes forward in some questions. They may be applicable to the architectural standards, and they certainly are in the intent document that we're rewriting at this present time or asking to rewrite, which is the Old Town Character Area Plan. The marquee did not conform with the step back requirements of the architectural guidelines or the General Plan 2001. It did not. There was a project called the Canal Side, putting 54 units, apartment units, on commercial property on Fifth Avenue. There was not one guest parking space. I think there were 2 guest parking spaces. But technically, they were all inside behind a gate. Southbridge 2 was so oversized in all the loopholes, the public objected to it, and finally the applicant withdrew it. Now, step one that this council took in really looking and critical thinking about what's happening in the Old Town, I got a little bug, was the analysis of the citywide parking ordinance. And parking ordinance was modified, studied and modified. I'm going to get that guy on May 14th. And it was effective June 14th. And it was very significant citywide because it also required guest parking for apartments and dwelling units. It also applies to the Old Town Character Area. And one of the things that we passed was that the parking in the mixed-use area should retain at least 20% commercial use. That is part of the zoning code for our parking criteria. Now, when we have a case like Canal Side, which can say, well, they used the loophole that said they didn't need any guest parking, and they were approved converting commercial property on Fifth Avenue, placing those units on stilts. So all you have as a pedestrian walking on Fifth Avenue is car parking underneath an apartment building. That violates, in my opinion, the General Plan 2001. I helped write it. I think that's what we cared about, that we had some interactivity. In that case, again, I'm not being theoretical about it. Canal Side ended up with 98.2% residential use, and the so-called mixed use was 900 square feet for a slushy Servy bar or something on the ground floor. Now that doesn't support economic vitality of a very unique and special place. That's an exact, though that's all factual. When it came to the Southbridge 2 asked for the open space along the canal. You can read it in here. It says preserve public space as much as you can. But it was basically sold and bartered for private property, and the city would have lost 18 feet of the canal area. That was an actual project. It not only would crowd the canal in the open space, it also would have taken property into the street underground, disrupted traffic on the other, for the merchants on the other side. That project was approved. And it took a referendum to really overturn it until it went away. When you look at that project, it also violated the setbacks, step backs, the architectural guidelines that were part of consideration. Didn't have a podium, it was vertical. I'll point out another one. Consider the Canopy Hotel. It pretty much went vertical, we understand that. But one of the most, let's just say, profound, you might say insignificant, but really added to the character of this city is covered walkways. The Canopy Hotel only put canopy over its own entrance. It should have had walkways so that as you walk from Bippo to Pippo or wherever, 2nd Street, to the Museum of the West, you'd have that invitation to do that. You see the same thing on South Bridge Original. The guidelines for walkways have been in our books. It's been part of the character of Scottsdale since '86 when we put it in there, and I was part of that too. And they say, now if you look at Southbridge Original, they put in 30-inch round concrete columns on 1/3 of the buildings. The other third have no covered walkways. Now this was built, and the other third of the building has 2x2 or 2x3 square masonry columns. Now this is in a walkway, and they're in threesies. There's like 3 of them together. You can't even hardly put your hand through between them. I mean, you're creating everything that is the antithesis of what we want or expect. And then several years later, Southbridge 2, they project, 4 by 8 foot columns in these walkway areas. All you have to do is open the book on the requirement of why is Scottsdale so inviting? It's because of those walkways, and they've been overlooked. Go to the Sugar Bowl. They don't even have columns. That was built in 1958. I expanded it another 75 feet. They are a triangular cantilever, and people love it, and you got all the view of what's going on. Go to any shopping center. How many shopping centers have no covered walkways? Come on. All of these areas scale and need to scale in support to make, it's true that private property begins at the property line, but Scottsdale has always asked for that covered walkway. Scottsdale has always given rights to and encouraged that to happen, but not with 4x4 big columns. And Southbridge had some even larger ones bumped in there. At the original Southbridge, they have these enormous columns, and they're supporting 1 story above it. You could support 15 stories on those columns. So this is the level of concern that I have, and we'll be opening up again several of these areas. I haven't split them into different, whether it's a zoning situation or rewriting, but these are essential. And frankly, when the downtown guidelines that show transition and told the DR board that there shall be a type 2, type 1, then a type 2, and then a type 3, and the mapping shows directly from a type 1 to a type 3, to me, the mapping has to be corrected. That's our job, because it is semi-fraudulent to say, well, this is the way it's going to be on the architectural guidelines. And then, oh yeah, I can show you 4 or 5 projects when those rules were all broken. So let's get real here and decide all of these particulars. It will go forward and it needs to be aired publicly. There are other comments that I hope you'll take notes from. I don't know if there's any zoning attorneys listening. Oh, wait. Let's go on to Councilwoman Whitehead.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to go ahead and focus on the city requirements on ourselves and not address what we might want to do with our developer partners to make sure our downtown is the best it can be. So I definitely want to deliver. Pretty much every page and every other page talks about the need for open space. And honestly, as if on cue, Scottsdale Progress today had an article identifying South Scottsdale as hotter. And of course, they identified one of the solutions as open space. So there's a lot of talk in this document about open space. Nothing has happened, but there is one particular opportunity that would kind of tick off a lot of different priorities in one initiation of a park. So I would like staff to come back and specify, or I would like my input from my colleagues about having a canal level park on the only remaining public parcel we have on the canal while retaining the public parking that we have. So that would be 5th Avenue and Goldwater. That is, and that would serve multiple purposes. It would definitely cool down our city, our downtown area. It will provide connectivity, pedestrian connectivity, place to stop. It will extend our corridor or wildlife corridor along the canal. So definitely that is a top priority. I'll be looking for that. We can't talk about open space unless we're actually going to do it. Then I thought maybe some more, again, specificity in the, there's a lot of discussion about trees, and again, pedestrian connectivity comes after open spaces being identified again and again and again. So staff, thank you, is working on, I think, both the tree canopy plan and the emerald necklace. I wonder if we want to just include that so that people know what they're, when you go out to the public for these meetings, they get used to our kind of clever phrase that's been around for a while and recognize that that's part of this pedestrian connectivity that also works nicely with wildlife connectivity. Let me see what other items I had. I would like to add a section on alleys. We're getting a lot of feedback, and that's wasted space right now. And while wouldn't it be nice if we have lighting and clean, and somehow alleys make better use of that valuable open space. I think other than, I do have some ideas. I'll wait for my colleagues on what can we do with our private partners to make it so that we're working together to create the downtown that is described in our general plan and described in both the 35 and 01 plan and meets all of the requirements that we set forth to make the downtown as, a destination that it's always been. So I'll stop with that for now. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Chadwick, and then Councilmember Millhaven.
Thank you, Mayor. As I listened to what the mayor had to say, I thought it was very interesting because I've gone through all these pages, just like I did with the general plan. I have about 20 suggested edits. And one thing that really bothered me was the use of the word metropolitan. And I did look it up in the dictionary. We are not a Chicago. We are not a New York. And I think most of us would agree, we don't want to be a Chicago or New York. We want to be Scottsdale. So that was one point that, thank you for making it. My second point is we have rules, we have guidelines. And darn it, people come and they say, well, I want it type 3. And then there's a type 1 next to it. And then we have the rules for the transition. But you know what? We don't follow them. We make exceptions to it. There's supposed to be a certain distance between type 1 and type 3. But, you know, it's not there. So it's okay. We can reduce the step backs and the step ups. It's okay. And that's what we have continued to do. And that is what is affecting the appreciation of Scottsdale and I think what many of us feel is the value to the tourist when they come to our city. So those are just a couple things. Another thing that I think we definitely can work on is a point that was brought up by an owner in Waterfront Towers. He looked over our downtown and he said, look at all that dirt. We shouldn't have dirt in those empty lots. If the developer buys it, if a person buys it, and they don't develop it within a certain length of time, darn it, put some rocks down, get some public artwork, and make it look decent. You walk through the city, and I am ashamed when I see these dirt lots. That is not Scottsdale, and that's not even an expensive fix. That's a cheap fix. So I think we need to emphasize that as well. I agree, Solange, open spaces, parks, which enrich the neighborhood. And of course, I have quite a few other things. I don't like the emphasis on the word vertical. Every time we talk about development, is that the only way to develop? Make it 150 feet tall? It needs to fit in the neighborhood. And I would say on page 19, there's a picture. And they're trying to tell us that in that picture, the modern office building in the background that sits next to Cavallari's blacksmith shop is a perfect example of transition from type 1 to type 3. No, it's not. It looks terrible. They took some of the brickwork from the blacksmith shop and trimmed the tall building with it. And then you're telling me that's compatible? Just look at it. It's two different types of architecture. It's not okay. If we could follow our own rules, we would be in a better situation now. And I think the whole purpose of reviewing this document is to make sure that we re-emphasize the rules we have in place and darn it, follow them. We are not the United States government where they never follow any of the rules. We're Scottsdale. We thought about the rules. We worked on them. We had community input. Now it's time we followed them and respected them. And I think that's been missing for several years because everybody was willing to get away with it, close their eyes, pass it off. I don't think we want that anymore. So I would say the first thing we need to start with is review our rules and follow those rules. Thank you.
Councilmember Millhaven and then Councilmember Durham.
Well, it's pretty clear my colleagues disagree with a lot of decisions that were made in the past. And it's certainly their prerogative now that they sit in these chairs to approve or not approve whatever projects or exceptions that they choose to, just as anyone who sits in these chairs in the future will decide for themselves based on their vision and what their constituents believe need to happen within our city. So we can modify rules all we want, but we can't bind a future council. Rather than speak to the content of the plan, I think tonight is really more about process and what the timing would be and the outreach, because I think whatever we do, and whether you like the current plan or not, it is the product of extensive public outreach and public input. And so I think that if we're going to consider any changes to the plan, we need to also do that. But at the same time, we are sending a general plan to the voters, and we have been challenged in the past to get that general plan approved. And so I'm a bit confused in terms of process about why we would open this conversation. While I understand there are people at the dais who feel strongly about this, I also know that there are community members who feel strongly about this. And I think that this will be a very involved and engaged citizenry as we have this conversation. And I'm thinking that the timing is very bad and that may confuse people with regard to their consideration of the general plan. So what I would like to do, I probably don't have any support for this, but what I'd like to do is make a motion to put off initiating this work until after the general plan election.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. I will oppose that. I think that you're trying to muddle the fact that we have unanimous approval and endorsement of our general plan. This is our specific action, just as if there were any element in any character that went overboard and that did not address those elements. If we want to speak to the motion at this time, the discussion of this and these topics is on the agenda, including specific text amendments that are very salient for the public. They can understand. If you choose to propose that the building shall remain 150 feet in these areas, then you can vote against the general plan if you choose to do that. When you can rally whatever forces you have, I will tell you that the public should have a general plan that at least recognizes that our council is correcting the problems that will lead us to unsustainability, traffic problems, and infrastructure, and a dilution of our tourism. Now, other people want to talk about the motion. We can vote on that. Go ahead, Ms. Littlefield.
Yeah, I won't be supporting that. I don't think that gives the right impression to folks that we want you to vote for the general plan. You go out there and vote for the general plan, but we don't want to tell you what we're going to do after you do that because we think you won't like it. That just doesn't sit well with me. We should be working, all of these things should be in conjunction with each other, and they should be in agreement with our citizens that this is what they want to do. I think we've noticed an area, the downtown character area plan, that needs work. It needs to be updated. It needs to be fixed. That doesn't negate what we want to see in the general plan. What it does, it should augment it. And we should make it so that they fit together and they build on each other. Not that we're afraid to do it because we're afraid citizens won't like it and they'll take out their anger on us by not voting for the general plan. That doesn't make any sense to me. So I can't go with that. I think we should be doing things that all work together in a unified whole and are consistent with each other. Thank you.
Councilmember Durham on the motion, if you have a comment.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't think that the November election is inconsistent or conflicts with the continued work on the Old Town Character Area Plan, because looking at the schedule in October and December, we're still going to be doing open houses and planning commission sessions, and we're not talking about council adoption on any of this until next March. So that's long after the general plan vote in November. So I don't see that there is any conflict on those. Just a couple of notes on things that I wanted to see addressed in the Old Town Character Area Plan. I think Councilmember Whitehead has mentioned most of them, but I have a hard time hearing behind these these plexiglass things. So I just wanted to very quickly hit some of the things I'd like to see considered. She mentioned open space, particularly creation of a public park along the canal. It's obviously we ought to have a public park along the canal. It's one of our best features. We're not using it, and there ought to be something there. The Emerald Necklace, we've talked about that many times. Not much has been done with it. It ought to be a big part of this plan. The bikeways ought to be integrated into the plan. That's certainly an important part of the infrastructure and transportation. I don't think there's much about bikeways or bicycles in the plan right now, so I'd like to see that. Finally, I would like to have a greater emphasis or discussion on ways to invigorate Old Town. I've mentioned before street fairs, things like that. I don't care what you call them. But we need to be creative in figuring out ways of getting people into Old Town. From the hotels, from other locations. We need to figure out ways of getting people into Old Town. So I would like to see some discussion of ways to invigorate Old Town. I think Councilmember Whitehead, mentioned the alleys. That's a possibility. Find ways for more public participation in Old Town. Using the alleys may be a way. Finally, I think part of that may be looking at the event ordinance, seeing if there are any ways that the event ordinance blocks us from fully utilizing Old Town spaces. So I know that that's probably something that's on our future agenda. But I would like to have some discussion on looking at the event ordinance as part of the Old Town Character Area Plan and seeing whether that's a blockade or something that inhibits activity in the Old Town. That's all I have.
Thank you, Councilman. The motion on the table and discussion has to do with the motion to postpone this Old Town Character Area Plan. And we have a second for that. So that's really where we're at right now. Councilwoman Caputi and then Councilwoman Whitehead.
I do think that, I don't understand why we're rushing this conversation. I agree that this conversation needs to happen after the general plan goes out to the public. We need to have them approve it, and we need to see what their vision of the future is, a vision of the future that's been approved by the voters. This current Old Town Scottsdale Character Area Plan, as I've said before and has been mentioned tonight, it's been 30 years in the making. We've done extensive community outreach and planning. It's been regularly updated. It's community-based, it's flexible. We've had a unanimous city council adopt it. And I don't think that we can make a decision this important without involving the entire community again. And that means residents and local businesses and probably tourism experts and everyone who's going to be affected. I don't understand how we could possibly rush a conversation this important. As we're showing, even just amongst us, we have very different visions of what the future of our city looks like, especially our downtown. I agree that we can talk about improving quality and consistency of proposed development downtown, which is what we were told we were going to talk about tonight. And I think that's great. We can certainly entertain ideas about how to make our Old Town development better and more consistent, but I don't know that we're in a position to start getting so specific without going out to the community. That conversation that the speaker presented in the beginning of listing some of the wonderful projects that are coming forward in our city, I personally find those cause for celebration. I mean, I think it's a wonderful thing that we have investors willing to put their money in our city and move us forward into the future. I have a vision of Old Town, of downtown, as I've said many times, that's live, work, play, that's year round, that's thriving. We need people to live here downtown so that we don't have open, empty lots and rundown spots, which are all over our city at the moment. I personally think that putting in some height and density in a downtown area makes sense. It decreases traffic because you're going to have more live, work, play options, which is the goal for the future of our city. And I want to just remind everyone, inside of our packet, it once again discusses the fact that our downtown area is one of 3 growth areas. Growth areas are considered to be primary economic engines for the community. Growth areas are locations identified by the community as areas best suited to accommodate future growth. Growth areas are intended to discourage sprawl and protect lower density residential neighborhoods from increased growth and development by focusing new development into these targeted areas that are most appropriate for accommodating a variety of land uses, enhanced infrastructure, and oriented to multimodal activity. Since 2001, the citizens of Scottsdale have identified Old Town, parentheses downtown, as a community growth area. So we do have quite a few citizens that have identified our Old Town as a thriving, vibrant year-round area. And I think that we need to get community input before we could possibly move forward on something this impactful to our community. Thank you.
Councilwoman Whitehead?
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, Councilwoman Millhaven, I agree. We don't want to, jeopardize our general plan, but I think our citizens are pretty savvy. And I think our voters elected us to do multiple things, not just one thing at a time. They elected us assuming we could walk and chew gum. So we have gotten a lot done this year. Congratulations to all of my colleagues. And many of the things that we're moving forward are on, like the emerald necklace and the tree canopy plan. These are things that are part of this Old Town character area plan. So I am not concerned. And as far as public comment, we are initiating public comment, that it's, and public involvement. That's exactly what we're doing right now. So I am confident that we can, we have 4 years that we're elected to serve our citizens, and we have to do many things during those 4 years. This is tied very closely to our general plan, and this is a great time to get citizen input and make some progress on the things that we know that unite us. I also want to say, when we started the general plan, we were all over the map. And gosh, we worked hard, but we ended up coming together, finding those areas of unity, finding ideas that maybe I had that weren't so good, that got knocked off, and everybody else, and we voted unanimously in support of it. We're going to do that again, I'm sure, here. We just have to start the process, and I'm looking forward to it. So I will not vote to deny, vote for the motion.
Okay, thank you, Vice Mayor Janik. Then I'll call the question.
Quickly, I don't know if anybody here has put more time in on the edits to the general plan than myself. And it's a wonderful general plan. It captures our vision. It does a terrific job of explaining everything. And we all came together and we really did a good job. I don't think that is at risk by the voters if we, in an organized, systematic fashion, with input from our fellow citizens who give great input, I think we can proceed with a minimum of disruption, basically, for the passage of the general plan. I think we're capable of that. And I do understand your concern. I definitely, Councilwoman Millhaven, I definitely understand it. But I'm hoping that we're mature enough that we can work around it and do both things at once. And I do believe there are several key ideas here that most of the citizens will really relish and want to see. So I think it might even propel the general plan to more general acceptance with consideration of some of these ideas. So thank you.
Okay, everyone has spoken on the motion.
I'd like to speak again, please.
Second, Ms. Millhaven, I see you asking.
Yes, thank you. I too hope that we can have a productive and collaborative conversation, because very proud of the work that we did on the general plan. However, I think this conversation will not be nearly as agreeable, particularly with the tone the mayor started the conversation with. And so if we're going to talk about some of the content of the plan, I would like to point out.
Excuse me, we're just talking on the
not
motion. We'll get back to the topic that's.
You need a vote of the council to call the question.
I did. I said we will call a question.
No, you do not have, the council needs to vote to call
We
the
can
question.
talk about the particulars, which is on the agenda. You interrupted that by saying we should postpone it. Now you're saying you want to discuss the particulars. So it's better that we vote on that motion and then get back to any points you wish to say or make on the text and what's been on the agenda. That's my point. So I would ask that you stick to the motion, which is the postponement, which is, you can discuss that. And then after that, up or down, we will get back to where we were in putting everything in motion.
The rules of procedure require a vote of the council to stop discussion. You may not call, you
No,
may not call the
if
question
that
without
was
a
the
vote.
point of your alternate.
I would like to hear from the
We will
parliamentarian.
we will vote on the motion and the second. And that's my call because we have a motion and we have a second.
I would like to hear from the
We can
parliamentarian.
repeat the motion was to postpone till after the general plan. The second was for that, and we are ready to vote on whether we want to proceed with what we are agendized to do tonight. So at this
So
point,
Robert's rules allows for me to make an objection to the procedure, and I choose to do that.
you choose to you made one motion already. Now you're trying to compound with the second motion.
No, I'm making a comment about the motion, and I'm adding to the discussion.
Okay.
You are
well, I
not
thought
allowed, as the chair, to cut off discussion without a vote of the council.
Excuse me, continue with your comment regarding why we should delay this why you should support your motion. That's what's on the table. Go ahead.
Thank you. What I was starting to say was that I hoped that this conversation around the downtown character area plan could be as agreeable and collegial as the general plan discussion was. But as we have just seen, there's a lot of heated emotion around here. And the mayor started out with a very aggressive tone, and I take exception to a great deal of what he said. He's trying to create a boogeyman where one doesn't exist. We do not have gridlock in our community. We do not have overburdened infrastructure. We do not have water problems. So I do not see that this discussion will be nearly as agreeable. The items that my colleagues mentioned about open space and trees and alleys and private partners and emerald necklaces and bike lanes, I think those are all good things to discuss, and I take no exception. But I do think that we may get into some areas that are quite contentious, that'll ignite a community debate that may create some confusion, not because the citizens aren't going to like what we do, but because there's going to be great debate around that. And yes, Councilwoman Whitehead, I can walk and chew gum at the same time.
Okay.
So my hope would be that
There is one motion on the table, and you have.
Excuse me, you cut me off. I'm not finished.
Okay, continue with your discussion.
So my
because-
hope would be that we could have a more collegial conversation, but it looks to me like that may be very challenging and would be best to put it off. Thank you.
Well, that's your opinion, and you wanted to delay the entire discussion to some future time. And at this point, we have a motion for you to delay, and all those in favor of the motion, aye. All those opposed, nay. Nay. Okay, we will continue with our discussion as posted for the public. And again, according to our discussion, confront the questions and ambiguities and be as helpful to staff as possible. So as these challenges are coming forward, we are not in denial that these subjects are not important, because they are. If there are any other comments, I have a few more to make as well. And I do believe that it can be cordial. I believe that the topic of cutting off the conversation has been answered, and we're going to continue the conversation. Part two of this discussion has to do with the conflicts of mapping and where the mapping imposes and is contradictory to the architectural standards that were proposed. That is a fact. I am suggesting that the staff verify whether that is a legitimate question, that type 1 going directly to type 3 is totally inappropriate or not. I am also suggesting that the insertion of type 2.5 is even more arbitrary and not necessary. So I'm suggesting that that be discussed. There is no case, as I know, that's pending or under any stress in that category. And yet that was arbitrarily inserted. I believe, I heard, I wasn't here at the time, but I heard it came in at the last part of the whole discussion. The other point that I believe should be tested is that whether or not in the Old Town character area, commercial downtown DO overlay and PB planned block development, where it is converting commercial property to 100% dwelling units. And I know apartment builders know how to build apartments. I know that. We know condo builders know how to build condos. But what we're dealing with in our town for vitality is a mixed use. So I am proposing that the mixed use have at least 20% of retail commercial use. That usually is at the ground floor. I don't believe that's asking too much. I believe it's consistent with a pedestrian walkable area. I don't think it's that contestable, but if someone believes I'm too emotional about that, I happen to have lived with that in our Old Town. I think it's very significant. And I think it would match up with the action that the council took so that we don't have another canal side eating up 98% of the commercial space on Fifth Avenue or Main Street or elsewhere. The other part of this discussion, as I pointed out several of the flaws, I would also point out in one particular case, a project which did have walkways, conformed with most of the setbacks, all of the setbacks, step backs on Indian School. It broke some of the rules on Third Avenue, but that was the Triangle Building or the Kimsey project. It was deep enough, 400 feet, and it could meet those requirements, and it could fairly well assimilate to that. It happened to be about 72 feet, 74 feet. In my opinion, and when we test this, we will find out that the type 3 would ask for 420% increase of the 36-foot height limit that we have downtown. That's what it's vested with as C2 property, the property that has not been rezoned yet. The Kimsey is an example, which went twice that, 72 feet, 74, within that 100% increase. It's being built, it's being invested in, it's successful in setbacks and step backs for the most part. Now, arguing that, oh, wow, it'd be even better if it was 160 feet or 190 feet doesn't make it better. I'm an architect. I've seen those kind of Taj Mahals end up being disasters. So that, I don't want to say standard, is another offshoot of what happened with the downtown Scottsdale character area plan. And it, in my opinion, now I hear from other people in the community say, Mayor Ortega, keep it at 36 feet. How dare you go above 36 feet? And I have other ones saying, oh, I love 160 feet. That's the greatest. We're going to be the metropolitan future of this whole valley now. They're going to want to come and join us here. Okay, so I have all of that happening. And all I have is empirical data. That's why I pointed out the flaws of some of these other projects where the marquee busted the rules. And by the way, the collective, the hotel that's being built is short 126 spaces. And it was approved last year by saying, well, we have extra 126 spaces on another hotel nearby. And now we're going to zero them out. I mean, that just blows my mind. How that can ever be justified. It's true what Councilwoman Millie said. Well, the council can vote for it. That doesn't make it practical. That doesn't make it efficient, sustainability. It doesn't solve all those things. And in the end, they're going to come back to the council and say, oh my gosh, what did you do to us? And why did that get piled on? So as we go forward, I'm going to ask that some mapping and other discussions come forward. I believe that the type 1 can be increased by maybe 4 feet, from 36 to 40 feet. That just allows for a little more structure that they might have a little breathing room to do something with. Type 1. Type 2, probably, and this is an ordinance area that can be discussed, and people will throw rocks one way or the other, and they'll say, I believe type 2 can probably be accomplished at 52 feet. Type 3, if it exists, would probably be 60 feet with a bonus of 12. What happens when you have a bonus? Well, the developer has to earn it. In this case, they saved the Kimsey building. There were certain things, walkways. There was a certain balance. Is it the greatest? Yes or no? It seemed to be an example that I can point to and say, you know, it can be reasonably done. But if they had tried, remember, they were at 90 feet plus before, and they reduced it by 20 feet. They were at 94 feet, and well, we can make it at 74 feet, make money, bring vitality, etc. So those are practical examples that I believe help us test whether or not something could and can evolve in a good way and in a responsible way, because that's our job. I don't want to overload the streets. I don't want to overload, again, I believe that there's been a patchwork of saying, well, we approved this project and now so-and-so has to run their sewer line three miles just to tap in. Well, that's a huge problem. It shouldn't be my problem as a city, because eventually they're going to say, you need to upgrade your sewer system to handle another 30,000 people in this area. And that's an encumbrance on everybody who, in my opinion, I'm with them. I'm not for this great, grandiose metropolitan future. It's what people ran away from, and we can do better. And as you know, Scottsdale is one of the most successful cash flow cities in the valley. And we've done it without going way, way overboard and breaking the system that supports it. That's my input on mapping. I think any of us can provide, and I would welcome the public to look at these, to read the document and think of it, because that's our job, is to reanalyze it against what is practical. And I will say one last thing. I have seen the city of Scottsdale planners, staff show the variance of setbacks and the violations of those architectural plans. And it's true, council can say, well, we don't care anymore. Let's go 20 stars and forget the setbacks. But what I'm getting to is I've seen the staff do their job in identifying where those critical things were. And I've seen them shake their heads after, hey, they just blew a big hole in our architectural stuff and our guidelines. And to me, that's inappropriate. It's got to be corrected. I'm willing to step into it. And I know my colleagues are, because if you think the Old Town Character Area Plan, I don't think anyone up here will say it's perfect, right? Do you think the way it was written 3 years ago is perfect? Of course not. So let's work together. Let's get something done. And with that, I think we don't have an action item per se. So we could, I don't see any other requests from council people. Can you conclude? And then Councilwoman Caputi has a comment.
Yeah, thank you again, Mayor. You do have an action item this evening.
Okay.
You need to make the consideration on the screen here, which is initiate the general plan amendment and the text amendments, as well as initiate amendment to the downtown infill incentive district.
Excuse me, so moved. I move that we proceed.
Second. I'll second that.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion?
I still had a comment from the.
We
It
have
wasn't
we
done.
have a motion that I made, and if you want to comment on the motion to proceed.
No.
Okay,
For a minute.
thank you. City Attorney, and do I need to read this just directly as it's moved, or is that too informal?
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to clarify your motion. I don't think you have to read it verbatim, that you're moving to initiate A, B, and C as shown on the slide.
Yes.
Up on the screen right now. I think it's the second to last page in the PowerPoint. I'm sure that we can include this slide in the minutes to make the motion clear, and also directing staff on item D to update the Old Town Scottsdale Urban Design and Architectural Guidelines. Is that correct? Do I understand
Yes.
the motion
Yes,
correct?
exactly.
And is
Proceed.
that also the intention of the second?
I just want to add, and I'll see if the mayor agrees with this. It's his motion to take some of the direction we've given you on the on things that need to be added. Thank you.
There may be, again, Councilwoman Caputi. Comment?
Yeah, I'm just still not comfortable that we're finished with this conversation. Again, we need more people in our downtown, so I just don't understand how we're having this conversation about decreasing the 1 out of 3 growth areas that we have in our city. So it's been brought up here tonight about this, we don't have enough infrastructure, we don't have enough water. I would like to, if staff's going to be looking into things, I want staff to help dispel that idea, because this seems to be a community boogeyman. And I don't think people have the right information right now to be able to make a good decision, because we've somehow, some of us have convinced them that we can't grow because we don't have the infrastructure, we don't have the water. And I think that's false. And I think we need to present some facts to go up against that. I'd love to also see a long-term plan showing what the downtown looks like if we go backwards. I mean, if we go backwards and we move zoning back to 1980s levels, I would love to see a projection, an economic projection for what our city looks like moving forward. How do we pay for all these wonderful things that everyone on council wants? We want bike paths, and we want open spaces, and we want parks, and we want beautiful things, and I want them too. But we have to find a way to pay for these things. And I disagree with the mayor. I don't think we have a sustainable model going forward if we move everything back, close the door and stop everything right now. We have to move forward into the future. We have to generate revenue. People are not going to come here and build 2-story buildings in our downtown area. And we're just not going to have the revenue to move forward. I grew up in Boston. When I come into Scottsdale, I just want to say that I don't feel like I'm in Boston. Scottsdale looks nothing like Boston or New York or LA, and it's not going to look like that ever. And if there are people on this dais who actually think our downtown looks like Boston or New York, I'm going to challenge you to take some more vacations, because I'm just not seeing it. I'm sorry. I would like to see staff, though, if we're going to come back and have staff present things to us, I do want to see some of these myths dispelled, because we've got to have some facts in order to make good decisions here.
Councilwoman Whitehead, and then we'll take a vote.
Okay, I'll just be really quick. First of all, this is moving us forward, and I'm very, very excited. And I think that one of the problems is that we haven't negotiated the public benefit with past development, and that has created a lot of rage. We definitely do have a water shortage, so I think anybody who's been to any of the lakes and sees the bathtub ring, so to even question that, I have to wonder about. I look forward to working with our development partners. We have wonderful developers in this town, and we saw that with Kimsey. We're in no shortage of projects that are moving forward. Some I voted for, some I adamantly opposed, but they're all moving forward. And that's what we as a council decided. And I'm enthusiastic about all of them. But I think we can, it shouldn't be an adversarial thing, but we need to talk about with our partners, with our private partners, what can we do to make it more valuable for all of us? And I'll just end, even though I'm not the architect up here on the dais, that less is more many times. And I'm looking forward to seeing what more we can do with this plan to make it better for all of us. So thank you.
Thank you. And I will conclude with this statement and then we'll take our vote. The subject of no growth and absolutely no growth is one of the total falsehoods that can be made. I have never advocated for that. And for someone to say that it's zero growth and therefore no viability is also on one deep end of the discussion. I expect that we'll be coming in positive conclusions, and I've expressed that we do expect investment to continue. All in favor, indicate your vote. Any opposed? Okay, the motion passes. Now we are to our next item, which is number 32, which has to do with the water report and our other information. Mr. Beismeyer, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Tonight I have a brief discussion on development fees pending a public hearing. So with that, so just a reminder to council, you've seen much of this report before as we've talked about our land use assumptions in the IIP and as we've developed our development fees. So development fees are one-time fees that are charged to offset costs associated with providing necessary public services to a new development. Development fees must result in a beneficial use to that new development. And historically, Scottsdale has adopted only water and wastewater development fees. The general plan states that the city of Scottsdale has long held the philosophy that new development should pay for itself and not put a burden on existing residents and property owners. The development fee process is guided by state law and requires city to adopt first land use assumptions and infrastructure improvement plans prior to the adoption of development fees. And council adopted the land use assumptions and IIPs on July 1st. This is kind of an outline of where we've been and where we're going. The public hearing on the infrastructure improvement plan and the land use assumptions was held on May 18th. As I mentioned, council approved the IIP and land use assumption report on July 1st. And we are here at August 24th for a public hearing on the development fee report. Then the next schedule would be October 5th for request to council to adopt those development fees. The October 5th is a change. Previously it had been September 28th, but there was a council change of dates. And so we've moved this to October 5th. So you might see an earlier document that had September 28th on it. And then the goal would be January 1st of 2022 for the development fees to be adopted, to be actually in effect. Land use assumptions, I'll just go over these briefly, although they've been adopted. They're key components to the development fee process. They are for 10 years. They must be updated at least every 5, and they show land use densities, intensities, and population of the service pursuant to the general plan. The infrastructure improvement plan also adopted, again, covers a 10-year period, must be updated every 5 years, defines equivalent demand units, and I'll discuss that a little bit later, and defines existing levels of service. Again, I've got a couple of slides to show those. Equivalent demand units, state law requires that we define the equivalent demand unit. And the water side, we define that, well, both on water and wastewater, we define that equal to 1 detached single family dwelling unit. For existing and future level of services, state law requires that we define the level of service. Level service is defined a little differently. On the water side, it's defined as peak demand because people expect to turn on their tap and get water. So it needs to be the peak level of demand. On wastewater, it's different in the fact that wastewater flows are not as dynamic. They don't rise and fall as much. And so we define that on annual demand. So again, the land use assumptions are used to help structure the infrastructure improvement plan, which are then put together to come up with a development impact fees. As we look at the infrastructure improvement plan and the total cost, you can see the water and wastewater sides. And as we've talked of before, there is both a infrastructure improvement or a growth related portion, as well as a rate funded portion of many of these projects. In that, as you recall, last time we talked about a pipeline that we might upsize for growth. There's a component of that pipeline that covers existing service. And so that is part of the rates that go into these totals. So new development fees. So the water development fee per EDU is $4,765 with the cost that I've shown, and the wastewater development fee is projected at $2,568 for a total of $7,333 per EDU. That is a change and it is an increase. So you can see this is over the last 9 years. In 2012, the state law took effect. A new state law took effect after our 2012 fees have been established. And you can see there is an impact. And the biggest impact with the state law was it defined the period that we could look at. We previously were able to look at 20 or 30 years. Now we're only able to look at a 10-year growth period. And so that's really what condensed these fees. Additionally, we calculated fees a little differently. And we've standardized that on the EDU. I think that was actually a good practice. But the problem with the existing state law, in my opinion, is it regulates us to that 10-year period of time. So what happens in that 10-year window is fees can go up and down according to what infrastructure we plan for that 10-year period. And in this case, so in the current case, you can see our wastewater impact fees actually go down because we have no increase in our wastewater treatment plants in the 10-year period of time. On the water side, we do have a planned expansion of our Central Arizona project, or CAP water treatment plant at the water campus. And because of that influences our impact fees upwards in this current analysis. On the commercial side, the same thing. We had a different way of calculating it in 2012, and then the new state law, and you can see the impact. And it has been increasing since that time. So currently, the development impact fees, again, are based on our meter size, both in water and wastewater. On the water side, that's based on the capacity of flow. On the wastewater side, again, the same thing, that the correlation between the amount of water provided and the amount of water returned exists. So you can see the difference. Again, it's in meter size as the current development fees and the proposed development fees. In summary, no action is required tonight. This is really information for a public hearing, and development fee adoption is scheduled for October 5th. Pending your questions, that completes my presentation.
Thank you. At this point, Councilmember Millhaven, and then I will open public comment.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Biesmeyer. Very timely discussions, given the conversation around development. This clearly shows that we are planning our infrastructure to support future development and charging developments for the impact they have on our infrastructure. So thank you. I do have one question. Mr. Biesmeyer, at our current rate of development, when do you think we're going to run out of water?
That's a large question for this particular subject. I guess I'm not prepared to answer that because there's a lot of inputs that I don't know of right now. We do have a water issue. We do have a water shortage that is there. There are a lot of components. There's our Salt River project supplies. There's our Central Arizona supplies. We have a shortage on the CAP. We don't necessarily have a shortage on the SRP side. There's a lot of components that go in there. We have a lot of groundwater stored. So it's not quite a simple answer as I can make right here and now.
So I've heard the statement made that says we have a 100-year water supply. What exactly does that mean?
The 100-year water supply is not really on this agenda, but a 100-year water supply is approved by the Department of Water Resources, where we show that we have a supply for 100 years. That's based on a number of assumptions on our supply, including our cap water supply at its full allotment.
Thank you.
Thank you. At this point, the purpose is to open a public hearing. I have not received any comment, telephonic or in person. Is there one now? Thank you.
Mayor, there is one from Bastien Andruet.
Great. Important.
Just because I haven't made enough friends tonight, once again, Bastien Andruet with the AMA speaking on behalf of over 26,000 units, owners, and developers here in the city of Scottsdale. Once again, we just wish to express our concerns related to the city's proposed increase of water development impact fees. That will increase development impact fees for multifamily developers by 12.5%. Furthermore, it should be noted that to our knowledge, not a single stakeholder meeting was held to discuss these substantial fee changes. If meetings were indeed held, the AMA at least was not included in any of those discussions. And for comparison, virtually every city or town across the valley that adopts new land use assumptions, infrastructure improvement plans, and the ensuing impact fees conducts multiple stakeholder meetings to solicit feedback from the development community. As noted in a comprehensive economic study conducted by Elliott D. Pollock and Company, the state of Arizona must build hundreds of thousands of new market rate and affordable housing units by 2030 to match pre-pandemic demand. Considering that Scottsdale only has 26,000 apartment units and the city has grown by nearly 41,000 residents over the past decade, it is imperative that we examine the conditions that led to this housing supply shortage and proactively remove those barriers to future development. From Stanford to Clemson, Brookings to Cato, and Obama to Trump, one universally agreed upon hindrance to housing development includes the imposition of costly development impact fees. In 2019, President Trump issued an executive order establishing a White House Council on eliminating regulatory barriers to affordable housing, in which he stated, federal, state, local, and tribal governments impose a multitude of regulatory barriers, laws, regulations, and administrative practices that hinder the development of housing. These regulatory barriers include inordinate impact or developer fees. These regulatory barriers increase the costs associated with development and as a result drive down the supply of affordable housing. They are the leading factor in the growth of housing prices across metropolitan areas in the United States. Similarly, in 2016, President Obama stated in his 2016 Housing Development Toolkit, when rental and production costs go up, the cost of each unit of housing with public assistance increases, putting a strain on already insufficient public resources for affordable housing and causing existing programs to serve fewer households. When development costs are high, the cost recuperation is passed along to the renter, ultimately undercutting and undermining the express purpose of developing more housing, affordability. The proposed increase in water development impact fees is a step in the wrong direction to reducing these costs and rectifying the issue of housing affordability in Scottsdale. As was once again inferred in today's Republic article, as council's intent, quote, to restrict development and preserve Old Town will do nothing but to hinder the very goals which the city seeks to achieve. To this end, we respectfully request that the council reconsider increasing these water development fees at a time when, if anything, the city should be searching for ways to increase housing construction, not limiting it or making it more expensive. Once again, I thank you for your time, and if you have any further questions, I remain.
I do. Previously, you said something like you expect the metropolitan area of Phoenix or the Valley to absorb 210,000, or what was that number?
So across the state of Arizona, that was 230,000 units total.
Okay. And then I heard you say that you expected Scottsdale to absorb 51,000?
This is based off of 2019 estimations, but yes, about
Excuse me,
51,000.
sir. So you're saying Scottsdale, Arizona, according to your bosses, believes that we should absorb 25% of the need of the whole state of Arizona?
So it's actually according to the Elliott D. Pollock and Company study.
I'm just clarifying that because you are way, way out of line in your numbers. And I will say this as well, that there is the law of scarcity. The law of scarcity is like gravity. It governs everything, whether it's fuel, school teachers, education. The law of scarcity of water is one of the most valuable and precious assets. And if you're asking the city of Scottsdale by Mr. Pollock's reasoning, and you're entering it into the record, expecting that we're going to carry 25% of the water load due to these 52,000, you can take that back to your bosses and say, it was heard very clearly what you intend to do. And I don't believe that we can sustain that because there is the law of scarcity. I think you should review that a little bit. And I thank you. I understand, and you have to understand that my job is to make sure that development pays for itself. We will not discount the apartments or the multifamily and have the regular citizen or the businesses that are here subsidize that so that you can provide 25% of those units in Scottsdale, Arizona. So I think we're concluded. That wasn't a question. That was just some feedback for you.
And just as a point of clarification for you, Mayor Ortega, Scottsdale currently holds about 22% of the entire state's apartment inventory. That's where that number is.
I will also say, if you look at the AIA numbers from architects and city planning, they say that the city should never, their multifamily combined should be less than 20% to be sustainable and so forth. And I think if you're looking at what our total stock is of dwelling units, that 70,000 in that number, 54,000 plus 26 that we have now, would be way in excess of something that sustainability would allow. That's some pushback, and I hope we can come to a good conclusion at some point in between. The subject is water and whether development fees should be paid in full, and I think that message is sent. I see Councilmember Milhaven and Councilwoman Caputi have a statement.
Mr. Andrew, I'd like to apologize for the way you were spoken to this evening. I think we can disagree more respectfully, so I apologize. And the other was, what I understood you to have said is that there's demand for additional housing, that the community is short over 200,000, and that your belief is the demand in Scottsdale is for another 50,000. Not that you were expecting that we would build anything, but simply telling us what the demand was.
Correct. And just to elaborate further, that's across all different asset types. That's not just multifamily, that's single family as well, just to clarify.
Thank you, sir.
Councilwoman Caputi.
My understanding is that this is just a public hearing to talk about these proposed changes. So I just want to make the comment that I think it's so interesting that we're having this conversation, as Councilwoman Milhaven said, directly following a conversation about infrastructure in Old Town. So I just want to underscore the fact that we in Scottsdale make development pay for infrastructure and public services and facilities. That's all. Development pays for itself in Scottsdale. We make developers pay for what they do here in our city, and thank goodness for them, because we get infrastructure and facilities and wonderful things. So.
Thank you. Councilwoman Whitehead.
That's correct. We do make our fees based on true costs. And so you're suggesting that all of our citizens subsidize the people you work for in order to build apartments with some kind of frankly empty promise that that'll somehow help the future residents. I absolutely believe that development has to pay for itself. And I know that that is how our fees are computed. So I'm very comfortable with Mr. Biesmeyer's presentation and his recommendations. Thank you.
Good. So at this point, we're concluded on this item. We have accepted the report. There's no action required. And we will move on to item number 33. That would be petitions from from the public. Seeing none, and I have heard of none, then we will move on to mayor and council items. I have none. Are there any council items that might be brought forward? Okay, I wasn't sure if there was anything. Okay, and downtown, accordingly, we are concluded.